A lot has changed overnight, but Buick and GMC's commitment to you remains the same. We understand you want to feel safe, so we're offering current owners complimentary OnStar Crisis Assist services. Should you need a vehicle, we're offering 0% financing for up to 84 months with deferred payment options for 120 days. Plus, you may have the option to shop online and take delivery at home. Visit our websites for the help you need.
Visit AutoSpot GMC today.
Hello, my name is Mark Berry. I'm a 4-year Air Force veteran and close to 20 years of DoD fire service. Last year, June of 2019, we happened to have one of the hardest parts of our lives happen. We had a medical with me, ended up with massive hemoptysis. And during that time, while I was in the medically induced coma, my wife frantically looked for help. She found the congressman's office, which responded extremely quickly. They found out that I was improperly coded in the VA and quickly helped to fix it, which allowed me to get a medical flight to UCLA and get the medical treatment I needed, and that's why I'm here today.
I just want to say to anyone out there, if you have any federal issues, please visit your congressman's office to see what resources are available.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the Office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Funerals actually take a lot more planning than I expected. With us using island cuisine for the first time, of course we were iffy, but once they came and showed us their service, their food, tasted their food and everything, we definitely used them again because their service and food is just awesome.
After Guam, Siraj Gimpa introducing the 2020 Toyota Tacoma Access Cab T-Max. Este na mês, got to be promo United Airlines, $1,000 United vouchers. After nananga, sabik man manono si Tacoma, Guam, Tacoma territory. Text Siraj, ginagi Atkins Pro Toyota, 671-788-2584. Alumbray, go Siraj, sinanagan sa 671-788-2584. After nananga, let's go places.
For many accolades and celebrations. Good morning, Marianas and Micronesia. My name is Troy Torres. Welcome to our studios here in Tumon, Guam. This is your Tuesday, April 14 edition of Kandit News, where Good morning, Marianas and Micronesia. My name is Troy Torres, now with my microphone. Welcome to our studios here in Tumon, Guam. This is our Tuesday, April 14 edition of Kandit News, a special edition where we continue our coverage of legislative session, which hasn't started yet. We're waiting for session to start, but we do have some news items to bring to you before session starts, maybe a recap of the session, but before that, some news items, and before that, just a reminder to any of the merchants out there who want to get their message out that they are delivering or they have curbside pickup, they are in business and ready to service the people of Guam. You can advertise with Kandit News. Just email news@kanditnews.com. We'll send you a rate card, or you can go onto our website and you'll see all of that stuff there. Or you can call me at 456-4237. Sorry, 671-456-4237. You can WhatsApp me as well. You can call or WhatsApp Johnny at 671-797-7082. I would give you the line to the office number, but many times I don't pick up because we don't have caller ID, and all my life, I just never really answered unknown phone calls. That's why WhatsApp's important, so you can let me know who you are. before you call. Also, if you like what we have to say, if you think that other people should be hearing what we have to say, or more importantly, listening or watching the legislative session this morning when it starts, please feel free to start a watch party. Feel free to share the gift of Kandit on your feeds right now. We very much appreciate it. Let's start with the presidential election, just a little blip on it. I got news that Bernie Sanders, that was my godzu, endorsed Joe Biden, who is senile. Let's all expect Donald Trump to be the president for the next 4 years. I don't know. Donald Trump is going to rip that guy apart in the presidential election debates. And Joe Biden is going to stand there and he's going to be like, are we in Russia? I know that just pissed off a whole lot of people. I apologize in advance. Moving on to other news. Governor Ralph Torres. Governor Ralph Torres, we've been critical of him like a lot. But he put out a live video last night from the tarmac of the airport in Saipan. And he had some really extraordinary news. And let's just listen to what he had to say first.
Good evening, everybody. The great people of Commonwealth. It's about close to about 10:30, 11 o'clock. We've been here at the airport waiting for the test kits. We've been working on this test kits for about 3 weeks now. And we have about 20,000 on board. And as you see, it's here on the island. We'll be working on getting these test kits and hopefully start doing some testing in the next couple of days. I want to thank Esther Muña again, our CEO, and the task force, Warren Villagomez, who chairs the task force, Homeland Security, and I also want to thank GAR, Patrick Guerrero, for making this happen. For the great people of the Commonwealth, I want to thank you again for your patience, and we are working extremely hard to get everybody tested. Our goal since day one is to test everybody. It's going to take some time, but we're definitely moving in that direction. Again, our goal is to test everybody 100%, and that is our goal. Again, please stay home and continue social distancing and continue the proper hygiene. So with that, good night, everybody.
Okay, now first of all, 20,000 test kits. How many does Guam have? Do we even have 1,000? I mean, I know they're going to do that confiscation thing at the airport and the seaport, but I mean, without confiscating, Governor Ralph Torres was able to get 20,000 test kits into Saipan last night with the plane arriving and the cargo being unloaded by his workers. And on top of that, he has a very clear goal. He said, my goal is to test everyone in the Northern Mariana Islands. That is a very clear goal, a much clearer goal than anything we've been given here in Guam, and very much in line with the best practices of the countries that have flattened their curve and reversed the damage of the coronavirus. One of the tenets of these best practices is to aggressively test. And so he's going to get that down pat. At the beginning of this crisis, before many other places in the States, Governor Ralph Torres issued a state of public health emergency. Before many other places, especially way before Guam did, Governor Ralph Torres closed his borders. Even though he as Governor Lulian Guerrero told us, does not have the authority to shut down flights at his international airport, all he did was send a letter to United Airlines and ask them, hey, can you just stop the flights? And they wrote a letter back and they're like, sure, Governor, we can do that. Something our governor didn't do. And I'm not trying to make a comparison for the sake of unnecessary criticism. I'm making this comparison so that hopefully the people in the administration might look to the best practices and the very clear goal setting being done in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And, you know, since they seem to lack any creativity or critical thinking skills in the governor's office in Guam, maybe they can just mimic what's happening at the governor's office in the CNMI. And for Candid News to say good things about the governor of the CNMI, well, hey, they must be doing something right then. Because we're normally very critical of Governor Ralph Torres, but very clear goals, following best practices from the countries that have beat this thing, and just what a phenomenal response. How did he get 20,000 test kits? That's what I want to know. Is that his relationship with the president? Is that what's of China? No, President Trump, the anti-Wuhan virus guy. I think the only thing that Governor Ralph Torres was missing in that whole getup, that whole live stream that he did, was a MAGA hat. You know, right? Now the Guam legislature is going into session today. Hold on, let me go to the live stream right now just to see what your comments are first. Stand by. Is missing in that. There we go. Hi, Issa. That's my shoes. That's my running shoes. You better stop that. Carl Baker says CNMI strong. Very much so. Rita Arceo, hi everything. Good morning, everyone. Hafiday. John and Marcy St. Nicholas say, good morning, Candid crew and everyone on the line. God bless us all during this epidemic. May he keep us all safe, heal the sick, and restore our world back to normal. But we must pray to him to thank him for always giving us another blessed day to see. I very much agree. I don't know that our world will ever be back to normal. You know, I don't know that this is the new normal, but if people were smart, if the leaders of the world and maybe the market influencers of the world were smart, they would see this as a prime time to reinvent the economy. Brad Hewitt says, oh shoot, it just disappeared. Sorry, Brad, can you repost that? Can't wait to hear more recesses being taken. That just cracks me up, says Jennifer Sibe. Good morning, everyone. Dwayne Girl says, does anyone know if the Department of Labor is open? I believe all agencies of the government of Guam are closed to traffic except for public health, right? But I believe you can call the agencies because there should be people there to answer the phones. They're not closed for business. They're just sort of closed through traffic or public traffic. Pat Sahu says, Trump 2020 with the American flag. Brad Hewitt says, Joe Mumbles is going to be pulled pork in presidential debates. You're right, Brad. Hi, Chantel. Brianna Meno says, 20,000? Wow. No kidding. David Rages says, test everybody. Judith Zeus says, prayers for the CNMI. Anna Sibet says, wow, they have more test kits. They certainly do. Jason Joseph says 200. I think he's referring to the Guam count. I think they've increased that number, Jason. I think they got more test kits in. Brianna Meno says, we have nothing close to that. Yeah, you're right. Jesse Mendiola says, he's got a Kim Jong-un haircut, but that's awesome. He's getting his people tested. He kind of does look like Kim Jong-un, right? He does. Jane Thompson says, really, my thoughts also, 20,000. Selena Tenorio says, wow, his goal is to test everyone. Why can't our governor do that for us? I know, right? She's confiscating all this stuff at the borders. That's just... Michelle Conception says, money. It's all about the money. Brad Hewitt says, barbershops are closed. Had to put rice bowl on head and cut around. No, Brad, that really always is his haircut. Brad Hewitt says, in response to Selena about the governor, she's an idiot. Jennifer Sibe says, our governor is too selfish. what comes out of her mouth is, "I'm waiting for guidance." You know, I've been thinking about this a lot. I just think that our governor and governor's office are just not the brightest. And I don't mean that to be mean. I've been trying to put myself in their shoes and remember what it was like to be part of an unprecedented emergency situation. So for me, it was North Korea. You know, when there was nothing in the books about it, there was no guidance, no best practices, no protocols. Governor Eddie Calvo had to make it up at the drop of a dime. Literally when Kim Jong-un, otherwise known as Ralph Torres, decided to launch missiles and threaten Guam, within 40 minutes, Eddie Calvo had a plan, and he implemented that plan. There were... Are they live? Who's live? Oh, the legislature? Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see. Oh, session is on. They are live.
With fires happening more than daily right now
launch
around
missiles.
the island, and with firefighters being emergency medical technicians and are part of our public health crisis system, where all hands may be needed to be on deck if numbers surge. It's with a very heavy heart that I set this aside for right now. I'm still sorting through some legal and other issues, but I wish I could provide them the teeth and the tools to help prosecute or at least deter these people who are endangering all of our lives in a variety of ways by putting these public health workers at risk along with the rest of us. So I do motion to set it aside again.
Thank you, Senator from Nimitz. On the motion to set Bill 331-35 aside, do I hear an objection? Seeing none or hearing none? Motion carries. Colleagues, next on the agenda. Next on the agenda is Bill 334. Vice Speaker Nelson, could you please come to the...
Oh, this is the Dictator Bill, or the Dictator Act. I guess they're going to debate it right now. Here it is, folks. Please share away and get people involved in the discussion on this bill. Senators and their staffs are watching. That's my dogs getting mad at the Dictator Act.
Colleagues, up next on our agenda is Bill number 334-35 COR. Speaker Barnes, you are recognized.
Situas Masi, Madam Speaker, and Zen Manana Situas. I move to place substitute version of Bill number 334-35, which is an act to amend Section 19404 of Article 4, Chapter 19, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the enforcement of rules promulgated in an executive order relative to a declared emergency, public health or safety onto the third reading file with the opportunity to speak, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Objection.
Colleagues, there has been an objection to move Bill number 334-35 into the
Roll
third
call.
reading file.
Roll call.
Just a minute, Senator Tello. We are still on the first motion.
Sassy. Sashay away, girl. What is going on? They are being sassy classy right now. Well, how many? Okay, we are on 26 recesses. Thank you. The shot game is now 27. The shot game.
It's 27 now.
I think because they just recessed, right?
Yeah.
The shot game is now
In accordance with our
in
standing
motion.
rules, Madam Speaker, I will allow you to proceed. Standing rules allows us to deliberate on the measure and to discuss it.
Madam Speaker. Madam
Point of
Speaker.
information, Madam Speaker, I'd like to cite the rules in the Mason's manual that allows that when there's an objection on the floor.
Right. Let me get the standing rules out for you. If you could follow along also and grab your standing rules.
So what Senator Tello Tidegui is doing,
Speaker, on a point of information, to attest
she
the
is being an
violation
obstacle on
based on the
purpose
standing rules,
to
the
this
order
bill.
comes that unless the body wants to overrule the presider, then you can call for the vote.
Yes,
And that is not a debatable motion.
Yes, I understand that. Colleagues, please. Please. I'm going to address Senator Tidegui's point of information. Let's just be calm about this and let's make this as smooth as possible. Thank you.
I thought she was gonna start singing. Colleagues, Munga Masongan. Do you have your mic on? This is a back and forth commentary. And then it'll be a three-man commentary when Johnny gets here. Oh, my WhatsApp just froze. So they're on the Dictator Act. I thought they were gonna vote first on the bills that they had already sent into the voting file, but they're going straight to it. Now, this is the bill that we have been waiting for the discussion on, and it's happening now. Before they could even get the matter off to a start, Senator Tello Tidegui is just throwing up all kinds of parliamentary obstacles. She does not even want this thing to be debated. She just wants this thing killed. So does Senator Jim Moylan. Senator Joe Augustine withdrew his support for the bill. He was an author of the bill. He withdrew his authorship. And we also have a note from Senator Regine Lee, which seems to be, well, she is partly opposed to the bill and she wants some significant changes to it. Let me read that to you. One second. I got it from her staff, Filion Guerrero today. She says, this is from Senator Regine Biscoli. My support and sponsorship of Bill 334 hinges on two provisions being included: a substantial decrease in the penalties and a clear limitation of what we make a violation. I agree a misdemeanor is too harsh initially, but we should also not write a blank check to our current and future governors. I intend to introduce an amendment that limits the orders the governor can enforce to only those that have already been issued for this health emergency. This means any future orders the governor wants to enforce would still have to be approved by the legislature. I am opposed to Bill 335. That's from Senator Regine Biscoli. Bill 335 is the curfew bill, which is the other Dictator Act that we haven't really talked about too much. It was Bill 334 that gives the governor dictatorial powers. And did you see her comments in the other stations yesterday? She says, I need that power. She honestly God said, I need that power.
Senator Tello, just to clarify, was your objection on the discussion or was your objection to place the bill into the third reading file? Because if it is on the discussion, then we will still, in accordance with our standing rules, still proceed.
Madam Speaker. To clarify, it's to move it into the third reading file, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Senator Tello. Colleagues, there has been an objection to move bill number 334-35 into the third reading file. All those in favor to move bill 334-35 into the third reading file, as substituted on the floor, please raise your hand.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
You did not call for a vote. There is no objection that is in order if there is no motion. You only object to a motion. So what we are doing right now is she's on second reading, debating her bill. And you have not recognized any other senator on the debate, Madam Speaker.
Point of information,
There's
Madam
no vote
Speaker.
on that
Notwithstanding
right
the
now.
House rules, I move to remove Bill 331 from the session agenda and to send the measure to the appropriate oversight committee so that the public hearing may be conducted. Thank you.
Right. So
Sorry,
all
334. Sorry, 334.
All those in favor to move bill number 334-35 into the third reading and discuss, please raise your hand.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. If we vote on this right now, we are going to cut off all discussion. I don't think that's anybody's intent here. That would be a grave error, I believe, if you're going to cut off discussion right now based on one person's,
Point
it's
of
not even a
information.
motion, it's an objection.
Yeah, point
It
of
has to be a
information.
motion to cut off.
Okay, we're gonna go into a quick recess so everyone can just relax.
We are 5 minutes in, and the Guam legislature has taken 3 recesses. Get your Tylenol ready and your puke bag ready, because this is the day you're gonna get drunk if you're playing the shot game. I recommend that you take shots of beer and not hard liquor. Unless you're like Christine Calvo professional with drinking, then I guess you can hit the vodka or whatever, and it might not faze you. So Senator Tello Taitigui, what she means to do is just get rid of this bill. She is throwing up every parliamentary roadblock that she can think of. Vice Speaker Selena Nelson, Senator Srisalahi's right. I think the Vice Speaker is not really all that versed on parliamentary procedure, but Senator Srisalahi is right. If Senator Srisalahi was allowed as the presiding officer to what's termed call the question, which is the previous question as they call it, and that is to move the bill into the third reading file prior to any debate starting on this bill, what it essentially does is cut debate and move the bill straight to the voting file, and then there's no debate on it. It will be voted up or down by senators. Senator Tello Taitigui, meanwhile, I don't know if she means to be such an obstructionist that she's confusing everyone, or if she's confused herself about parliamentary procedure. But she's just throwing up whatever she wants to, whatever she can. And meanwhile, the poor speaker is in the middle there, and she's all like, I just want to talk about my bill. Let's see what your comments are. Ashley Tumbato says, God, hear our prayers, guide them to the good of our people. DT says, what's the daily special in the lunchroom? Chili, don't forget the hot dogs. Ben Kai Santos, song goes like this. Oh, yeah, we are watching you. Jesse Mendiola says, cases have seemed to taper off. Don't think this dictator bill is relevant anymore. That is a point that we raised with Speaker Barnes yesterday, as a matter of fact. Rosemary Salas says to Kevin Kanata, LOL, I just cooked chili with Spam. Jennifer Sabay says, okay, my cooked rice is done. Let's see if they can finish this before I can finish cooking my lunch. J.S. Blah says, the governor of Guam is already trying to dictate with loopholes. Brad Hewitt says, dumb arse Joe and Regine Bisco Lee need to gauge public opinion before signing onto it. They look like shiz pulling their names, purely pandering after they know they will lose votes. Nadine Bomba says, someone get these feisty felines a few blunts. That's the session they should do first before going head to head. Deborah and Joey Beneventi say there are 2 pandemics, coronavirus and our government with a failure of prevention. Nicholas Ichihara says, I'm glad we finally got a close-up on the Clint cam. Kevin Kanata says, aw, they all have purdy masks. I love Candid Land. I love Candid comments. Frail Morales says, thank God for Therese Terlahi. You go, Tello. Ansley Jackson Jr. says, darn, we got fighters today. Yeah, in just the first 5 minutes and 3 recesses. Take your shots. Rita Arceo says, calm down, the heat is on. Jason Joseph says, can we ask them to speak louder? Oh, is my computer not loud enough? Terry Sullivan says, move 334 into the trash can. That's what Tello Tadigui is actually trying to do. Ronica Marvica Nicholas says, cat fight, LMAO. Rosemary Solace, roar. Mike Gogui says, Dictator Bill. Ashley Timbato says, FFS. What's FFS? Oh, I think it's F this effing shiz, right?
Makes sense.
Am I getting that right? I don't know. Brad Hewitt says, drink. That was after the recess was called. Alicia Kanata is laughing her butt off. Anzi Jackson says, PMS just kicked in 0 to 100 real quick.
Hey, shout out to Michael J. Rages.
Shout out Michael J. Rages. Kevin Kanata says, ooh, it's getting hot in there. Hashtag punch your face. David Camacho says, place your bets, side, side. All bets down, all bets down. Hands off the counter, please. Nadine Bama says, told you, recess due to saltiness. Brad Hewitt says, Oolong tea. Jenna Lano, LMAO, 2 months. Alicia says, yesterday was a mistake. Andy St. Nicholas says, why do you keep muting their mics? Oh, why do they keep muting their mics? So after every person speaks, when they're recognized, they turn their microphones off, and then it goes back to the presiding officer who turns her microphone on, and then she says something, and it goes back and forth like that. But if you're talking about muting the mics during recess, that's how the legislature gets away with conducting business without it being on the record and without it being transparent to the people of Guam. They take these recesses so no one hears what they're saying. Deborah and Joey Beneventi says, I have a pigigi and chinin ice keki to share. Am I chinin? Chinin? I don't know how to say that. Kevin Canasta says, recess again already? Ansley Jackson Jr. says, they're savage, sassy, bougie, ratchet. Is that from a rap? Is that like Beyonce? Adrian Camacho says, coffee shots only. You will die of caffeine shock if you take coffee shots for the number of times that they will recess today. Ronica Marvica Sinica says, drinking shots of lemon and ginger. Shots. Don't forget the water with all that, people. Even if you're playing the beer shots game, even if you think you are Christine Calvo professional at drinking, you know, just add some water in so you don't die of toxic whatever. Bertha Lisa and Augustine says, I date children. Lance Titano replying to Ansi says, was about to say that and a side of triactin. Brandy Hall responding to Ansley says, is it worse than your sisters? I guess they know each other. Alicia says to Adrian, yes, coffee. Jennifer Sabe says, my shots will be A and W root beer. Jewel May Lazama. What about if they ask us to raise our hands? Ansley Jackson, for real, at least with you guys, there's control. Deborah Tenorio says, Governor of Guam is all about the power. She, honest to God, she said yesterday, I need that power. That's a quote. Quote, I need that power, unquote. Mike Gogui says, great job, Tello. Kevin Kanata, we're having fun on Kandit today. Yeehaw. Good morning, Adrian Camacho. Esther Farron says, Guam legislators recess Hamzu. Brad Hewitt says, they're throwing shiz in the fan and seeing where it lands. Don Pablo, can they just get to it already? My favorite and most beautifulest cousin in the whole wide world, Mana Silva Tyron, says, Lulian Guerrero is giving a live update right now. Oh my gosh, guess who has 2 thumbs and doesn't care? And I know Mana doesn't care either. That's why she's being facetious about it. Brandy Hall says, Kevin Kanata, you're late to the party. There's fun on Candid every day. Yeah. Is that true? Do we make jokes on every single No, there are times when we don't make any jokes, right? No, it's every time. Every time.
Yes.
Well, no. Remember when we were covering the Mount Carmel story and the girl who was abducted by palm office. There were no jokes in those stories, right? And then the abductions of the Luke sisters, we did not throw any
You're
jokes
right.
in those
You're
live
right.
casts.
Yeah.
There's been a couple, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and the Timika Nauta stories, we did not throw jokes in there. I guess there we draw the line on certain things. We know when to be appropriate, and when being completely inappropriate is the most appropriate thing to do, because people expect us to be real, and it's not about expectations. It's more about, hey, this is Kandit.
Right.
We wear tank tops and backward caps.
Yes.
And we used to cuss, but then Facebook sent us into jail. Bernice Castro says, it's the legislature's version of WWE, who will take the belt. Hey, I remember when it was WWF, World Wrestling Federation. What's WWE?
That's the evolved.
Is that World Wrestling Entertainment?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don Pablo says, the suspense is killing me. Cami Canisius says, good morning, Troy. Good morning, Cami. Dwayne, hi, Viv. Dwayne Guerrero says, the legislature needs to make a bill on how many recesses are allowed.
From recess. Thank you for your patience. So in our discussions that we had during the break, just to be very clear, when anyone moves a bill onto the floor, we use the word motion to move bill number 334-35 into the third reading to discuss. However, technically, the bill is still in second reading and you are able to discuss it. There is no objection to allowing the debate and discussion of the bill. Now, if I come to recognize you after after the sponsor discusses their bill, then that is when you have the floor to make a motion. Okay? So,
Vice Speaker Selena Nelson is kind of right, but we can talk about parliamentary procedure later.
Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak on 334-35, which I believe in my heart is a very controversial bill, but this bill was introduced at the request of the Magahaga, calling for help from the legislature to give her authority to do what is needed to flatten the curve. Madam Speaker, we have been inundated by emails and calls from the public. We have heard the talk shows and callers afraid, callers worried and angry about this proposal. We have seen the protests where the community members are concerned that their individual liberties are being infringed on. And I may agree with some of them. This bill should not have to be needed. But, Madam Speaker, we are dealing with an invisible enemy right now, an invisible war that none of us has ever dreamed that we would have to go through this. An invisible enemy right now. And anyone can be infected. And despite the measures put in place to reduce people congregating in public and leaving their homes for non-essential reasons, unfortunately, people are still infecting others and being infected. We have all seen the projections presented by the governor's medical team. Those numbers were grim and alarming. Positive cases are only going to increase tremendously over the next couple of weeks if we do not take this more seriously. Madam Speaker, we are over 130 cases positive. We now have 5 deaths in just 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks. Before the coronavirus pandemic, we were all concerned about our hospital, a roof that may collapse, and an electrical panel that may explode. Today, with those same underlying conditions, our hospitals and clinics are reaching capacity already, and the experts are saying the worst is yet to come. When I read, Madam Speaker, our newspapers, and there's another car accident, I worry about the strain in our hospital and whether those victims will receive the timely attention they need. When I read the newspapers and the minors are still violating curfew, it worries me that more people can potentially get infected. Madam Speaker, when our experts are out there advising the people of Guam to stay home, yet people are still gathering for parties, it worries me that people are not taking COVID-19 seriously. Moving forward, Madam Speaker, this point is crucial as we aim to flatten our curve. We all need to stand together with a strong stance, telling the people who can stay home to stay home. Full lockdowns and social distancing rules in Florida, California, New York, Italy, Spain, France are working. They say it's working. 47 states have full lockdowns and social distancing. My granddaughter, who is in Hawaii right now, says she's on lockdown. Not because she has the virus, it's because they know they need to help flatten the curve. And death tolls have decreased in these countries, Madam Speaker, because they are taking those protocols to heart. I want to share with you, Madam Speaker, that a recently published study by the University of Chicago states that the measures like this would save about 1.7 million lives between March 1st and October 1st, with 630,000 due to avoided overwhelming hospitals, intensive care units. And while these are national numbers, I want to share with you the fact over 500,000 people can be saved just by keeping hospitals from overcrowding. That should be our number one priority. Madam Speaker, the purpose of this bill is not to punish our residents or to take away their liberties that I can stand here and say, or sit here and say, that my husband and my son has fought for, and even you, Madam Speaker. And I thank you for your efforts of protecting the freedoms we have today. I want to share with you, Madam Speaker, it is to give our island families the liberty to continue to go to the grocery store, the pharmacy, get dinner, but while reducing the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. And the only way to do this is to put measures in place to contain the spread of COVID-19 to a minimum. Madam Speaker, this battle against COVID-19 is one that truly takes a community. Everyone needs to do their part to ensure that this island overcomes this. And while I wish we could all come to a conclusion and agree that everyone must do their part, we join more than 45 states or 47 states where we need a strong deterrent to ensure people do their part to keep their communities safe. I want to share with you, Madam Speaker, that this substituted version reduces the punishment. It notes that the first offense is a $100 fine. The second offense is a $200 fine. And thereafter, it will be a misdemeanor. Madam Speaker, staying home keeps our manamko, people like my mother, and even our children and my grandchildren safe, and knowing that if we help to do our part to flatten the curve, I have to ask and implore, let's do our part. In closing, Madam Speaker, while I understand in my heart the many concerns, and I also comprehend that simply putting this bill aside would be the best thing to do politically, I would hope that we put our community and our island residents, our people first. We need deterrence in place. Some people will need to change their duty, their daily routines, so that the community can protect the right to live. The decision to cherry pick which rights and liberties can be afforded to our residents is not a decision for me to make. It is a decision that we all have to make, and we have to do this together. I know, Madam Speaker, that we are all eager to get back to our daily lives. And this is one way that I think would help us do it as soon as possible. I had a call this morning from a nephew who said, I understand that your job is not easy and that the decisions you make may even affect your future. But Auntie Tina, if you do it from the heart, and you look at saving and making sure that your children and grandchildren, my family, my family isn't safe, and okay, I can live with that. But you are right, there are a lot of angry folks out there, and I don't have any intention of wanting to have to legislate common sense. One of my former speakers, a good man, said to me and said to our August body, you should not have to legislate common sense, but sometimes we need to do it so people can follow the rules. And I just want to say that I know that some of my colleagues here today do not agree with this bill, and should we have to send this back to committee, I have no problem with that. But at least we can do is to have a productive dialogue to see what we can do together. This, again, Madam Speaker, was at the request of the Magahaga. And I know that every day changes are done fluidly. Every day we are up against this invisible enemy. We are up against this invisible war. Then my Uncle Roman Kanata from Talafofu, former commissioner who's 91, will be 91 years old this year, said, I want to stay alive, and I will do my part to stay home and only get the essentials that I need if I have to go out, but if I don't have to go out, I won't. So for our manamkos, for our family, our children, our grandchildren, I moved this bill to set aside, Madam Speaker, because I had reservations. I've talked to people who've called me up 11, 12 o'clock at night saying, what are you doing? And I said, I understand your concern. But I put it up for discussion today to ask my colleagues to at least help me make that decision that 47 other states in the nation have done to date, to tell those people that are violating the stay-home executive order, to say, if you violate, then something should be done. I hope my colleagues at least consider that. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to at least share my thoughts. I want to thank all the callers, all the emails for and against, because on the other hand, they said, what? You should throw the book. You should do community service. They should take their driver's license away. They should do this, they should do that, because they're not listening. Algoguat di Mashao is what I was told. Algoguat di Mashao, and I went, you know, if you can help me do the part that the governor has asked us to do because people are not listening, then I at least have to try. And for all those who ask that stricter penalties be put on this legislation, we've consulted with the Attorney General's office, with legal counsel, with additional attorneys in the community, the esquires in the community, saying, you know what, you cannot put harsher penalties based on the crime or based on the punishment because the punishment has to fit the crime or the citation or whatever. And to the people out there, we're not touching the criminal code. We're looking at the public health protocols that we can work with. So, Madam Speaker, I just thank you and my colleagues for giving me the opportunity. And I only ask that we work on this together. Situ Smasi, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
There are some glaring contradictions in what she said. The first is that there are no penalties, or they don't want to penalize people.
The author of this
of
measure
course,
an
not
opportunity to clarify. I think in her opening statement, there was mention of page 2, the actual fines and how they've changed in this substitute version. So what was stated was the first fine would be $100, a second violation would be $200, but in the version that we have before us in the substitute bill, it says $250. So I think this is an important and a big change. And so if she could just reiterate what those 3 steps are for the members of the body, but also for the public who might be watching. Thank you.
Speaker,
Thank
do
you,
you yield to the point of inquiry?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the previous speaker. I did say 250, but if it came out muffled, I apologize.
The second contradiction was she said that that this is not going to change the criminal code. Well, technically, she's right. What this bill would do is allow the governor to enact criminal statute via executive order, which I have no idea how that's constitutional in anywhere in America, or how any governor has been given this authority, because I guarantee you no governor has been given the authority to enact criminal statutes without their legislature. And so technically it doesn't add to the criminal code, but it does just bypass the entire Guam Code annotated and legislative lawmaking authority and vests all of that authority into the governor. That's why we called it the Dictator Act. And so she would be criminalizing, the legislature would be allowing the criminalization of violations of governor's orders.
And thank you for the clarification. Madam Speaker, my support for Bill 334 hinges on 2 provisions being included in the version that we vote on. First, a substantial decrease in the penalties for violations, which was discussed previously and has been addressed in the substitute version. And second, a clear limitation of what we are authorizing to be a violation. And I think that second point is important. Madam Speaker, much has been discussed regarding a criminal misdemeanor being too harsh of an initial consequence, but just as important is not to write a blank check to our Magahaga and to future governors. That is why at this time, Madam Speaker, I'd like to proffer an amendment to limit the orders the governor can enforce to only those that have already been issued for this COVID-19 health emergency as of today. And I believe the clerk has the floor amendment, so if my colleagues can follow along.
Senator Lee, please proceed with the floor amendment. Does everyone have the floor amendment done submitted by Senator Lee? Senator Pito, I will recognize you after Senator Lee. After Senator Lee, Senator Pito, I will recognize you.
Madam Speaker, let me just say that I wasn't going to say anything about the amendment. I just want to say something about the bill itself.
Okay, Senator Pito, right now at this point, I will recognize you after Senator Lee. She still has the floor. You're out of order. So there is an amendment. Senator.
Point of information, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Senator
I actually went up and asked to speak first, so I don't understand why people are coming before me. Went up to the clerk to specifically notify you that I would like to be next to speak after the speaker.
Okay.
Tello's right.
Thank you, Senator
And you have
Tello, for your
bypassed
point of
me.
information. I did not bypass you. You will be after Senator Pito Terlahi. In accordance with their standing rules, decorum and debate, the speaker who is the presider, may call on the individual to speak. So please keep decorum. You will speak after Senator Pito Terlahi. We are on Senator Lee's amendment. Thank you. Does everyone have Senator Lee's amendment? Okay, just give us a minute while we get the amendments out to all of you guys.
And colleagues, I believe it's in the FA folder, the floor amendments folder, under substitute bill number 334-35 COR. There are 2 amendments in that folder. And the one that says RBL is the one that we'll be discussing. And that's on line 11, page 2.
So Senator Regine Bisco Lee's amendment, as I understand it, I haven't seen it, but as I understand it to be, would remove the dictator powers from this bill. And the dictator powers that the Speaker's original bill would give to the governor, even in her substitute bill, it still grants to the governor dictator powers by saying that the governor can issue orders that if people violate, those people, if they're caught, would face on the first violation a $100 fine, on the second violation a $250 fine, and on the third violation up to 1 year in jail.
It's okay to continue.
Senator Lee is proposing an amendment that says that, okay, those punishments can be made, those punishments can happen if people violate the governor's existing orders, but that if the governor has further orders, in order for those to be considered for enforcement by these fines or jail time, the Guam legislature would have to approve it. So, in essence, Senator Lee's amendments would remove the dictator provisions of the bill.
For you to stay with us as we move forward, it will be in the file folder named FAs, and then you go into the next file folder where it says SB 334-35. That's where all of the amendments will be placed by the clerks.
Jesse Mendiola says, that time of the month came for all of them at the same time. It's about to get biblically caveman today. Monica DeVarian says, good time to have Chotaguero at this time to launch at every senator because they're all acting like a bunch of idiots. Nadine Bamba says, can you imagine if all the governors had the power to call shot what is criminal activity at their will? We would all be in jail. Matter of fact, Nadine, we would hearken back to medieval times before the French Republic, before
Senator
the
Lee,
Renaissance.
please proceed with your floor amendment.
Situs Masi, Madam Speaker and colleagues. Again, this is line 11, page 2, to add a new section 2 to read, Section 2 applicability. This act shall apply only to executive orders, rules, or regulations relative to the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, public health emergency as of April 13th, 2020. And again, Madam Speaker, this this language, this amendment means that any future orders that the governor wants to enforce with a fine would also have to be approved by our legislature. So we would have a say. We have an opportunity to hear feedback from the public. We have an opportunity to adjust some of the ways in which we move forward. And I believe that this keeps intact the consent that the governor admitted that she may need in the future, which I hope will protect us, protect the people of Guam from any intentional or unintentional consequences that may arise if we adopt wholesale enforcement without knowing what a chief executive would order during the next public health emergency. So it puts some of the onus on us. It allows this branch to be a co-equal branch of government and to help provide those checks and balances for the executive. I ask my colleagues to please consider and please support this limiting language, and I look forward to discussing this matter further. Sidos Masi.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the
So Lee's amendment takes away half of the problem.
Senator Castro, you are recognized.
Just as a point of information, Madam Chair, if I can state my question, and if she'd yield, I can I support the amendment, and I understand the need to articulate April 13th. My point of information would be, does that mean then that the latest executive order prior to that date would be 2020-10, dated April 10th? Just to be clear and for the record.
Is this a point of information or
Yes.
a point of inquiry, Senator Castro?
Point of information, point of inquiry to the previous speaker.
Senator Viscoline, do you yield to the point of inquiry?
Sure, and if there is an amendment that the senator would like to proffer, I just wanted to be very clear that, today is the day we're discussing these orders, and I want to make sure that everything up until this point today is being captured in what we're limiting here. And I hope that's enough clarification. Thank you for the question.
Could I restate my question then? If anybody in the hall would know if Executive
proceed.
Order 2020-10 is the most recent EO that we received, just as a point of information for me.
Senator Castro, if you could remain looking at the bench, and if you have a point of inquiry and it does not suffice, you may rephrase your question, but it's
Okay.
not a point of information when you're asking a question for the whole body to answer. You have a point of inquiry for the sponsor of the amendment?
Point of information, Madam Chair. This is, Executive 10 is the last executive order that was placed out on April 10th, 2020. It talks about the road closures and the extension through May 5th.
Thank you. Senator Castro, does that answer your point of inquiry? Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the Senator Lee amendment? Senator Shelton, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I do have a concern with the amendment since it will go into effect for April 13, 2020. So any other executive order to be proffered after this date would have to, this bill would not apply to it. And we will be hearing a bill in a few minutes that will also has the potential to expand the governor's authority through executive order. And if she were to give out any other executive order from this date, this bill would not apply to that. So
What a tool.
I'm registering my concern, and I do object to this amendment.
What a freaking tool this Amanda Shelton is.
Thank
a big
you,
tool.
Senator Shelton. Is there anyone
A big
else that would
tool.
like to speak on the Lee amendment? Senator Lee, you're welcome to close.
Well, this amendment gets rid of half of the problem. It gets rid of the dictator provision of the bill. But the other half of the problem remains, and that would be the criminalizing of violations of the governor's existing orders. And the speaker said, in one of the contradictions that I didn't get to bring up because we went back into session, was when the speaker says that the punishment needs to fit the crime. And Ismael Velez, I saw it in the comments, he said, "You mean the crime of going to someone's house?" I just don't know how that's going to pass some constitutional muster. Because Ismael makes a very good point, and the speaker makes the point against her own point, is you're going to send people to jail for up to a year where the coronavirus might be festering, and if it isn't already festering, you increase the risk that it will spread in the prison.
We will have 1 minute recess.
By sending, we're on shot number 31. By sending more people into the prison for up to 1 year. And this is, how about we don't even know when they're going to be brought before a judge because the courts are closed. You know, guys, you have to understand that the basic tenets of not just American democracy, but any democracy in modern history are being challenged here. Essentially the taking away of the writ of habeas corpus, which is central to modern history's democracy, is at play here. When you are not even able to guarantee that people who have been jailed, their rights to be brought before a judge so that their case can be adjudicated as quickly as possible so they do not fester in prison at the hands and at the whim of a powerful executive. There's just so much here. And so while personally, I like the Lee amendment because it gets rid of half of the problem, I hope that a future amendment gets rid of the other half of the problem, and that is the criminalizing of violations of governor's existing orders. And then there's Amanda Shelton. I don't know, what a freaking tool. Let me see what your comments are. I'm going to read this comment because I keep seeing it come up, and I'm thankful for your comments, and I don't ever want to ignore them. Jason Dotson says, there are greater issues at hand aside from the virus. Social isolation works to a certain degree. Everything that is happening on Guam and the rest of the world share one commonality: the atmosphere of fear and how it is being used as a tool to make people react accordingly to whoever doesn't think critically. People in Guam don't even realize that we live social distancing. Well, I do. Like all my life, I have. Even clubbing, I was social distancing. Wake up, people of Guam. We are socially distanced from the rest of the world. We are currently forced to be reactive, but how proactive are we? I am not trying to incite disobedience and disregard of the law. There is no one magic bullet approach to the various invaders at hand. Invaders defined as any entity or entities that bring immediate death or destruction. I heard we all need to work together, doing our part, always reported over and over again. Whereas the website created by the government offered to hear possible solutions from anyone in the community. Oh, that's a good point. A website that has formal guidelines such as addressing a specific problem, the tools and resources needed to address the problem, not just a witch fest of complaints. We still have to follow the directives from the US, but we have to invest locally. Support local, but local has many different faces and voices. Well, in Saipan, they're doing it right. They just brought in 20,000 freaking test kits. Ismael Velez says the only reason there is a state of emergency is because Kim Jong-lu wants federal money. If the federal government wasn't offering money, there wouldn't be a state of emergency. Can we just all remember the translated videos to our markets, most of whom were battling the height of their coronavirus infections, and Governor Lulian Guerrero was inviting tourists to Guam at this time. You know, she told the New York Times, there was an article in the New York Times about the Theodore Roosevelt. This was prior to the passing of that sailor, whom, by the way, Kandit expresses our deepest condolences, our heartfelt prayers to the family, the friends, and the fellow sailors of that 41-year-old man who passed away. Such a sad thing. Our sources told us that the hospital staff was in complete shock and mourning, and they lined the halls of Naval Hospital to bid a very tearful farewell to that sailor yesterday. Oh man, I hate it when I go off in these tangents because then I forget the main thing I was saying. Do you remember what I was saying? What I was saying?
You were talking about.
I'm having a Joe Biden moment, everyone.
I forget.
Are you having a Joe Biden moment?
Yes.
You can't remember what it is that your point was?
Yeah, I'm lost.
He's talking about the governor inviting people from these tourist hotspots.
Oh, yes. Right.
And
There
then, no, I was going somewhere with that. Son of a Joe Biden, man. Son of a Joe Biden. Oh, the New York Times article. Thank you, Gary. So in the New York Times article that was published, I think it was yesterday, the governor is quoted as saying that that she fully expected and anticipated that this was prior to the first confirmed cases on Guam, that back when the coronavirus was becoming an international issue, she fully expected and anticipated that Guam would face its own outbreak. This is quoted in the New York Times. If she fully expected and anticipated the outbreak to happen on Guam, why did she? Oh shoot, Issa, man. Why did she, at the same time? Issa just scared the crap out of me. Why did the governor, at the same time that she was inviting, or at the same time that she expected these people or this outbreak to happen on Guam, was she inviting people from coronavirus hotspot outbreak areas to come to Guam? If she fully expected it and anticipated it. Either she lied to the reporter from the New York Times, or she's not being very truthful with us about how this whole thing started and why she didn't do more things to prevent this outbreak from happening on Guam, which has led us to this point where she is now demanding from the Guam legislature that she be given more power because the people are the ones who are at fault for this thing spreading. And as soon as this thing is all done, we are going to do our forensics on the start of this coronavirus situation on Guam, because I guarantee you we're going to find that our governor was lying. Oh, can we play this?
You to visit our beautiful island. Warm weather and warm smiles are waiting for you here.
While there is a global concern for the 2019 novel coronavirus, we want to assure you that starting with our airlines and our airport, to keep everyone healthy and safe.
And that's not social distancing.
As of today, we have no confirmed cases of coronavirus on the island.
We are excited for you to explore and experience our island paradise. We look forward to seeing you soon.
That's okay. I love your shirt.
Today, I'm Governor Lou Leon Guerrero.
And I'm Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio.
We want to personally invite you to visit our beautiful island. Warm weather and warm smiles are waiting for you here.
While there is a global concern for the 2019 novel coronavirus, we want to assure you that we have layers of defense, starting with our airlines and our airport, to keep everyone healthy and safe. As of today, we have no confirmed cases of coronavirus on the island.
We are excited for you to explore and experience our island paradise. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Riz Melville says, when she has more power, it gives her the authority to remove the need for a plebiscite. It won't matter what the people want. You gave up your freedoms for a little false sense of hope. You know, Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes also talks about, she said 1.6 or 1.7 million people will die, according to some think tank or whatever, if measures like what she is trying to institute through this Dictator Act are not implemented throughout the United States. You know, I don't know if this is a stretch, but the very first thing that came to my mind was how many millions of people have died to protect the freedom that she wants to piss away in this bill. And I know that that is not relevant to the times that we are facing right now, but it is very much relevant to this discussion about how the Guam legislature is actually contemplating a measure that will make one person on this island a dictator in this American territory where we have always enjoyed our freedoms to do things. And is freedom limited? Sure it is. By the Constitution, of course. By common sense and morality, most importantly. And to suggest that, that the people of this island do not have a general sense of common sense and morality is disingenuous of our legislators, and it is not why we elected senators to exist and to govern. We do not need the governor of Guam and the speaker of the legislature, the senators of the legislature, to piss away what millions of Americans have died for us to have because they couldn't get this response right. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Good morning, Chalu.
Good morning. Good morning,
I love
everybody.
your shirt. How are you to do?
Hi, everything.
What is? I'm missing the line.
How are you to find out?
How are you to find out?
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm late. I'm usually late, or I'm usually the early one. Troy's usually the late one.
Like I wake up late.
Yeah. So I get good 3 days in early, on time, getting things done, and then on the 4th day, I'm usually late. So
I'm looking for
Review your mic on.
Oh shoot.
I'm looking for a comment by
You know, Troy,
Jose
I
Martinez.
wanted to discuss this
Yeah, yeah.
because my sister called me and she said, you know,
Dr. Stroop?
no, another sister
Okay.
who has a lockdown order back in the States. So they've been home for the last month in San Diego, you know, and she wanted to ask me because of all of our viewers and Kandit Land, she wanted to know what are our solutions. This dictatorship bill shouldn't pass, right? But because people aren't listening, okay? And I'm not just talking about the minority. This disease spread on Guam because of the 1%. That's how this started. And when we do our investigation, and we will get to it, and we will publish names, and the whole story. What are some other solutions for our Candyland people and people who are just tuning in? You know what I mean? I know the solution is to stop this social isolation, but also these businesses that are written on this essential business that we know aren't essential. And those businesses are on there because they're friends with the governor. Okay? Now, as far as food consumption, nowadays people don't cook. I think this generation right here is the last of the Mohicans to cook. I'm not kidding, because it was our grandparents or our parents that taught us how to cook. The generation after us, they don't really cook. So the restaurants, yes, I believe.
I don't even like them.
Yeah, I know. I know, Cello. But we need to find solutions, people. We need to hold each other accountable. Like you say, Cello, where has this person been? How, where's your kids? Are they coming around? And that's for your safety as well as mine. So we also need to hold each other accountable for our movements. You wouldn't let me in that door if I was out there dancing, prancing around all over Guam, So I think we need to find
our business partner and our friend, Carlos.
We can't even see him.
Yeah.
He doesn't even check us anymore because he has to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to expose us,
right?
Because he knows that the risk of him being exposed is so great because he's at Guam Memorial Hospital. Wow. That's the prime example. And so you're right. The solution really is a matter of individual responsibility.
Right.
But it's also a matter of right information coming out from the government. So they keep saying, they have this whole marketing effort, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home. But from the beginning, what has that really meant? They should have been a little more clear about it. They should have said, don't go to your parents' home.
Yeah.
Social isolation. They made it like a hashtag.
blanket, yeah.
Social isolation. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
We know what it means now because we've heard it from President Trump, from
Cuomo.
Governor Cuomo.
Yeah.
We've heard it from the CDC and all this stuff,
Yeah.
from Congressman St. Nicholas. But our local government was never clear about what social isolation really meant. And if they had been a little more clear about things.
Oh, they're back.
Senator Lee, we are back from recess. Senator Lee, you still have the floor. I believe you have an amendment that you wanted to proffer, so please proceed.
Sujasmasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I sent a revised amendment to the clerks. So I just want to make sure that everybody has that.
Colleagues, it is in the same file. So you go to FAs, the file folder named FAs, and then you move to the next file folder on SB 334-35. And it is marked RBL1. That is the amendment we are entertaining now.
And Madam Speaker, if I may.
Please proceed.
Again, this is an amendment to line 11, page 2, to add a new section 2 to read applicability. This act shall apply only to executive orders, rules, or regulations relative to the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 public health emergency as of April 13th, 2020. And the additional language begins here. Such enforcement authority granted by this act shall be null and void on the termination of the COVID-19 public health emergency as provided under 10 GCA subsection 19405. So we want to be very clear when this would begin, what it covers, what it limits, and when it would end. So we just want to, we've made that amendment to be very clear as to what is covered in Substitute Bill 334. And I thank my colleagues for any questions that they have on this additional amendment or any discussion that they'd like to have. Sujasmasi, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the Lee amendment? Senator Castro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I rise in support of the additional amendment, and I thank my colleague for working to confine the authority that's attempted to be granted to the governor. However, there's still a specific provision, even with the amendment, that I'd like to address to the prime author, as I've been advised to do. But I do want to publicly state, I appreciate Senator Lee's motions to constrict the authorities that are attempted to be granted. Thank you.
Good job, Will.
Senator Torres, you're recognized on the Lee amendment.
I feel like I have bipolar disorder.
Why?
Because sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't
Madam
like them.
Speaker, I'm looking at the amended amendment, the second one with regard to section 2, adding a new section 2, which is titled applicability. I am very concerned about this because if you look at the Guam Code annotated, 10 Guam Code annotated, which is health and safety, Chapter 9, which is what we're dealing with, is emergency health powers. And we are specifically at section 19404, enforcement. Now, Bill 334 was proposing to add a, under section 19404, a section 1, which has A, B, and C. A is what is existing right now in code, which is during a state of public health emergency, public health authority may request assistance in enforcing orders pursuant to this chapter from the public safety authority. Public safety authority may request assistance from the organized militia in enforcing the orders of public health authority.
That's what's on the law now. We are proposing to have a subsection B where the governor in each executive order shall designate agencies responsible for the enforcement of the provisions of the executive orders. Further, we're adding a 3, which is tiers of punishment for violation of the orders. Now, what this amendment is doing is to add a section, further section that says that this act shall apply only to executive orders relative to coronavirus, and such enforcement authority granted by this act shall be null and void on the termination of COVID. So,
Confirm cases on
I don't see how you are furthering the enforcement of during a state of public health emergency as it is contemplated in Guam law by saying we're gonna do all of this, we're gonna add teeth to it, we're gonna add punishment and crimes and criminality to it, but it's only during the duration of coronavirus. I mean, it basically wipes out the whole intent of that section of the Guam Code. And so my point is, you either keep it as it is or you put teeth to it and you let it stand as a matter of course for any public health emergency going forward. Because it just seems counterintuitive that you're essentially, by narrowing it down and giving it a sunset with coronavirus, you're essentially wiping out that section of the code that deals with enforcement by doing this. And that's my only point. I understand that we want to get a little bit tough and we want to make sure that, you know, we do everything to allow the curve to be flattened and not have further spread of the coronavirus. That could be the case with other healthcare emergencies that happen in the future. The nature of healthcare emergencies is not specific to a virus or this pandemic. It could contemplate any range of things. And so I think that the law has to be preserved in that if you're going to have a statute specific to emergency health powers and you're going to add some teeth to it and say we're going to punish people, then so be it. But to say that you're only going to punish for certain executive orders, only for a certain time, only for this pandemic, I think it's just, we're not helping anybody. And I think, quite honestly, Madam Chair, the problem is we're so uncomfortable with this. And I think that we're uncomfortable because we know that we're in a position right now where putting fines on top of something is really just adding insult to injury in some ways. And let me clarify that. When you have a situation where people are so put out economically, their ability to move and work and carry on with their lives is at a pause by order, executive order. We are at a pause right now in the interest of spreading the virus. When you start adding on punishments and fines and potential criminality and potential jail, all you're doing is you're aggravating a situation even more. You have people who can't pay the fines potentially at a position where you're going to establish debtors' prisons at a time when you don't want to add more to the prison population. You're going to have people who are going to perhaps justify it because $100 or $250 or $1,000 is nothing to them. So what I'm saying is that the likelihood of abusing fines exists when you have a situation like this where you've caused people to be paused in their daily lives and their livelihoods, and the threat to their livelihoods and their stability is looming over them and putting them in a state of panic and despair. So I think that I understand why these amendments are proffered. It's all trying to make sense of something that really is hard to comprehend because it's something that we've not had to deal with before. So I give everybody that credit of the doubt. But I think that if you're looking at a statute for what it is, for its ability to stand as a grounds of a law that you can depend on in any scenario that can be relevant to an emergency health situation. We need to not overbroaden it or narrow it to the point where it really just burns itself out. So I think that in saying all that, what I'm really doing is I'm opposing the amendment, but I just wanted to go through this large narrative because sometimes we can't see the forest from the trees when we're so boggled with wanting to do something to help. And in this case, I'm just trying to alert us to the forest and that, you know, we can't compromise what is a necessary section of this code that deals with enforcement during a state of public health emergency. So with that, let's just preserve what is good about that section and not have a sunset or narrow it or have us have to come back and, you know, later to address every specific type, because I think it's broad enough and general enough that it has applicability to whatever scenario presents itself. And I apologize if I'm not clear, but the Guam code is on the Compiler of Law's website if anyone needs to go back and look at it in its entirety. Otherwise, I think the bill as presented shows specifically what that section is.
Yeah.
Let's not lose sight of the bigger picture, please, because I think that is really to our detriment as policymakers.
She's so smart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I love her.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Senator
classy.
Torres. Just to be clear, is that an objection to the amendment? I heard you say that you're opposing the amendment. But
Yes,
just to be
ma'am.
noted. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the Lee amendment? Senator Lee, you're welcome to close.
Susan Smasi, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for your consideration. I also feel it's important to note that our legislature does currently have the authority to revoke the emergency declaration under the current health statute. And I know that we all pray for the day when this emergency declaration has been lifted, when this situation is behind us, and, you know, we all look forward to more of our day-to-day lives being within our control. And again, Madam Speaker, I offer this amendment to limit the orders that the governor can enforce to only those that we know about, only those that have already been issued for this COVID-19 health emergency. And I ask my colleagues to support this amendment to ensure that any future orders that the governor wants to enforce with a fine would also have to be approved by this legislature. I believe that this keeps intact the consent that the governor admitted that she needs into the future, which I hope will protect us again from any intentional or unintentional consequences that might arise if we just adopt wholesale enforcement without knowing what our governor would order during the next public health emergency. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what that looks like, and we don't know what will need to be implemented in the future. And so, again, Madam Speaker, I offer this amendment for the consideration of my colleagues, and I thank you in advance for your support. Susan Smasi.
Colleagues, there has been an objection to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hand.
Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pito. 7. Yeah. Sabina.
Amendment passes.
Wait, what amendment was it? Regine
Now
Lee's
on the
amendment?
original amendment.
Yeah.
All those in favor to the amendment. Yes, Senator Talahi.
On the original amendment, Madam Speaker.
As amended. Would you
Yes.
like to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to just pose
You're
a question
recognized.
to the author if she's confirmed whether, it says here in the amendment that it's going to be, shall only apply to those executive orders in place as of April 13, 2020. And, you know, the governor has been continuing her prior executive orders. We've seen this pattern, and I'm just wondering if she continues an executive order, would this still apply beyond, you know, right now it goes, I think, until May 5th or something? If it goes, so she
That's
has
a really
another
good
executive
point.
order
What?
that continues.
All of the
everything
governor's
in place
executive
until then.
orders have have end periods.
Senator Lee, do you?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. We kept this language in this way so that we can attempt, instead of listing each of the executive orders and all of the things contained within them, that we just adopt it based on what's already in place today. So going forward, all of the things that are already in place today, if included in a future executive order, would remain in place, and if this amendment passes, would remain covered by the fines in that three-tiered
That's not
fashion.
true.
So
She's not telling the truth
I hope
here.
that answers the question.
Teresa Lahi's right. Each of the governor's executive orders has a sunset provision, an end date. So, for example,
On the
her current
amendment,
isolation
as
order
amended.
would end on May 5th.
Is there
So
anyone
if
else
this
that would like to
amendment made it
speak?
through and this became law,
All those in favor on.
it would just end on May
I
5th.
believe there was an objection.
It's a fatal
So all
flaw in
those
her amendment.
favor to the amendment as amended, please raise your hand.
That's all objections?
In favor. Voting for the Lee amendment.
Amendment fails.
Thank you.
Senator Lee, you still have the floor.
Clint Rogel is so quiet.
Senator Pito Telahi.
It's like he's
you are
not even there.
recognized on the main motion.
I think the first time that Pito Talai is going to speak
Madam
in this
Speaker,
session.
I want to yield to Senator Tactagui, and then I'll have my turn after she speaks.
Oh, thank you so much, Pito. You're such a gentleman.
Thank you, Senator Telahi. Senator Tactagui, you are now recognized.
Go tell her. Tell her.
Sejus Masi, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak. Madam Speaker, Bill 334. We heard that the importance of this bill and how it needs to be passed, but most especially because it was required or requested by the governor. But the question I have, Madam Speaker, is if this was such an important bill for the governor, then why hasn't the governor submitted a bill to this legislature and call us into special session if it was that important? That's the biggest question we have. Both this bill and the next bill that we're going to be speaking on. But Madam Speaker, before I move forward with my motion, I'd like to read something here that I received by none less than a teacher, a history teacher actually. It says, whereas I desire to fight this virus, I do not desire to live in a command society or military state. I do not think setting up roadblocks, curfews, and imposing fines would be the best use of our time and resources, and would put extra strain on our law enforcement, requiring them to fight battles against ordinary people who are, for the most part, are willing to do and are doing whatever the governor asks. I think these restrictions will only serve to frustrate the ordinary people the government is trying to protect, and wearing down the law enforcement to the point in which, when they are needed for actual crimes, they would be too tired, frustrated, and spent in order to protect our community. We are doing what the governor has asked. We are not going to theaters, sports events, or Ross. We are not congregating at the beaches. We did not even have an Easter celebration. Continue to monitor the curfews for minors. Continue to patrol at night to take care of criminal activity. Continue slowing down the roads if necessary with the National Guard. These measures are working. Let's not get too hasty. Let's stay the course and continue to put our nose to the plow. Voting to expand our governor's power is too much too fast. Madam Speaker, I'm sure everyone has received countless emails and texts. And this is the first time being in this legislature and in the 30th Guam legislature that I received testimony where 100% that I've received was to vote no on this bill. Madam Speaker, with that being said, and notwithstanding the House rules, I move to remove Bill 334 from the session agenda and to send the measure to the appropriate oversight committee so that the public hearing may be conducted. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Speaker.
It's supposed to be an undebatable motion.
What Tello just did?
Yeah. They're not supposed to
I
debate
make
a
a
motion like
motion.
that.
So notwithstanding the House rules, I move to make a motion to remove the bill 334. Thank you for that correction, Madam Speaker.
Now what they're supposed to do is just have a vote on the motion.
She has to make a motion to move it back. Object.
Leche, si Tina.
Object.
As per legal has advised us, your motion is noted to move it, and I will continue the debate, and we will call the vote when the debate is completed.
That's not right. That's against their own rules.
Madam Speaker, can I have a short recess, please, to confer with legal counsel?
Sure, we can have a quick
Get a new legal.
Now, this is an appropriate recess, but we're still going to count it to the shot score.
Look at her walk. You tell them, Tello. You tell them.
So, what Senator Taidagui made a motion on is considered an undebatable motion. And aside from the motion to adjourn and motion to recess and the motion for previous question, to call the question, is a motion that takes precedent over any other, except for those other three: recess, adjourn, call for the previous question. So this is like
Maybe I think you should text them and tell them the rules. Tell them their own rules.
They're gonna follow what the legal counsel says. That's just how it's gonna roll with them. The problem is that the speaker, whoever the presiding officer is, has a lot of power when it comes to parliamentary procedure. So Talina Nelson can break all of their rules, and she can say, "This is my ruling." And if you don't agree with my ruling, you can move to overturn a ruling of the chair, which requires either a 2/3 or a 3/4 vote of the senators in order to overrule. Sean Mann, who asked any news on the dictatorship law, that is exactly what the senators are debating right now, is Bill 334, the first of the Dictator Acts. After this, they're going to debate Bill 335, the second Dictator Act, which is the curfew law.
You know, the past 2 days, the governor keeps telling people it's going down, her social isolation's working. So I really think these two bills are moved. Are they watching what the governor's saying?
You know, we asked the speaker this yesterday.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you know, that's why we should debate these things. She didn't want to recognize that the governor already acknowledged. Yeah.
See what I mean? They pick and choose.
Yes. Brad Hewitt asked, is Jim Espadon still the legal counsel? Frank Cruz says, isn't the counsel Sophia Diaz? Sophia Diaz is the assistant legal counsel to the governor. Jim Espadon is not the legislative legal counsel. It is Ana Juanpat Borja. Martina Cruz says, Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes sticks to martial law. Emotion kicked in after Senator Tello as it is. Mark Huggins says, can someone gag Tina? She's tired. Kelly Cruz says, Tina is tzaddik to object. Nicholas Ichiara says these monologues are dramatic. Let's see. Monica Devera says it's about time someone is for the people. I'm not sure if she was talking about Mary Torres or Tello. I think that was during the time that Tello already went up.
You know, I'm just imagining myself in that office or in that thing. Troy?
Fight, Jello, fight. There's gonna be a fight. Sergeant at Arms is gonna have to get involved.
I'm just the tension, just the, and them acting smart. I would be like, hey, are you acting smart to me? What was that? Repeat that.
Kelly Rodriguez says, agree, punishing the majority for the sake of a few. And David Camacho
And the
makes a good point.
few is who, Troy?
It's golfers.
Golfers, the poker players.
Trip takers.
Yeah, all of that.
Basically lose people.
Yes.
David Camacho says, yes, Tello, law enforcement officers are wearing down. I actually saw a video where
I agree.
Someone, there was like a little bit of an altercation between someone who was delivering food to the officers and one officer who was getting mad at that person, didn't quite understand that that person was there to drop food for them. And so later on in a
Maybe the
second video-
officer's afraid, that's why.
Well, in the second video, you hear the officer apologizing and saying, I'm really sorry. We haven't had any sleep. We've been working every day. And so, you know.
The last
you
thing we
see
need
it.
is for them to go on strike.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't understand. We're so behind.
David Camacho says regarding what Tello said about why didn't the governor
Call
introduce
her
this
own
bill
session,
herself?
just the way Calvo did, right? Didn't Calvo?
All the time. When Eddie Calvo wanted something done from the Guam legislature, he threw their butts into session. And
Even in the middle of the night, right?
Even in the middle of the night. Every time
love
Judy
it.
Wampad gavelled it out, 2 minutes later, Eddie Calvo would throw them right back into session. It was the funniest thing. David Camacho said, because she wants the legislature to be the bad cop, right?
Mm-hmm. She does. But Lou doesn't realize she's done. Lou is done.
I had a thought about something.
What?
And it was, since yesterday I've been thinking about this whole, what if this becomes law, right? And
you know, you guys are gonna have to. Candyland is gonna have to bail us out of jail. We are gonna be in jail. I will take one for the team.
So if it became law, let's say, and a violation of the social isolation order would mean that you cannot go to your parents' house, your friend's house, whatever, right? Actually, Kandit would be included in the accepted areas because media has been accepted, right? Whether they
acknowledge us or not.
That's another question for the courts, which are not open. So
the courts acknowledge us.
Yes.
We
have our
are.
passes.
Yes.
We have,
yes.
We have our passes to go to court and not as defendants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my thought about it was, how are they going to determine if they even distinguish people who actually, in a very responsible way, have timed that, let's say, I've been in this place for 20 days. I didn't go anywhere, not even the grocery store, because I have my whatever that I need.
My stock,
right?
yeah.
My dad's house, my stepmom and my siblings, they didn't go anywhere for 20 days. They didn't, they didn't even go grocery shopping, gas station, whatever. For me, responsibly, I can go to their home and they can come to mine.
Because you know for a fact they have their isolation.
There's no exposure anymore to the coronavirus. So if I did something where there's no exposure and I went to their house, according to this law, I would still be
Colleagues, we are back from recess.
right for penalizing,
Senator
for sending to
Tyree,
jail,
I will ask you to please restate your motion.
Susie responds, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move and make a motion that Bill 334 from the session agenda, remove from the session agenda, and and send the measure to the appropriate oversight chair, which I believe is Committee on Rules, so that the public hearing may be conducted.
Deny.
On that motion, there has been an objection. All those in favor of sending bill number
Chelo was right. You're right, Troy.
334-35 back to the Committee on Rules, please raise your hand.
Check it out.
3,
Come
4,
on. So
5,
look at Joe. He's
6,
Come on, Joe.
7,
5,
7.
motion fails.
Wow, fails by 1 vote.
We are now still on the main motion. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Rangel, you are recognized.
There you go, buddy. Hang in there, Green Leg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this obviously is a difficult bill that's been presented before us. We have a lot of things to weigh. We have to weigh the current crisis that we're in, the COVID-19 crisis, as well as weighing the rights of the individual. So it's a difficult bill to decide upon, but ultimately it's a bill that I cannot support at this time for numerous reasons. One reason I can't support the measure is I believe the current measures we're taking are actually working. I believe we have flattened the curve. If you look at the numbers, I believe that the doomsday scenario that was presented previously by doctors is incorrect. There are some doctors now that have been tracking it who are presenting a different set of data and different numbers that I think match more of what's actually happening. One example you can look at specifically is even in New York, they are now saying they are flattening the curve in New York. And how they determine whether or not they're flattening the curve in New York is based on the daily number of positives. New York is not seeing increases in the daily number of positives. In fact, I believe nationwide, they're beginning to see the curve flatten. And that's due to the social distancing measures that have already been taken that have not required as much teeth as this bill is asking for. I think we're even doing better than New York and a lot of the other states. If you look at New York's trajectory on a daily basis, every single day since their outbreak began, the daily positives increased steadily. That is the curve that they're talking about, where the daily number of positives increases day to day to day. That's that curve. We've already flattened that curve. As a matter of fact, I think we're beginning to reverse it. Yesterday there was 1 positive test. Now I know people say, well, we're not testing enough. I do think.
What is that?
Testing. Test.
Yeah.
I do believe that we are.
Yeah. No, messed up.
Thank you, Tom. So again, I'd like to say that I do believe we've begun to flatten the curve. As a matter of fact, the governor has alluded to that in some of her discussions yesterday during her press conference. It was also noted that we are seeing more recoveries. The recovery rate of patients is now faster than the infection rate, which is precisely what we want to see at this moment in time, and is what we're beginning to see. So I think because we are already flattening the curve with the measures we've currently done, I think shows that for the most part people have been complying. Of course there are those that haven't, but I mean if you venture out anywhere to the grocery store or anywhere else out of your home, you'll see that there's not really a lot of people around. There's a lot of people in certain places. In the grocery stores, yes. But look at the streets of Tucumán, look at the beaches, the parks, they're all closed. You don't really see anyone there anymore. Maybe in the beginning, a few people were going there because I think there was some confusion over what they were allowed to do and what they weren't allowed to do. There were a lot of questions. There's still a lot of questions, which is another reason why I think that this measure is troublesome, because people won't even know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. They don't know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do now, many of them. So if we were to do this, there would be a lot of people who would be getting fined or getting a misdemeanor simply because they didn't fully understand the executive order. Every day I get questions about the executive order, about what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So I think it would just cause more confusion, more strife, more commotion within the community, and we've already begun to see that happen, even just with the introduction of the measure. Now I understand what the author of the measure is trying to do, and I respect that. I also respect that the governor is looking for more teeth, and I understand the need for that. I do think that the governor is doing a good job with flattening the curve with what she's currently done, which is why I think instead we should continue to stay the course. I think the current course of action we are taking is more sustainable in the long term, and much of the discussion worldwide has been that this may be something that we will have to implement in the longer term rather than the shorter term. So with that, I'd just like to register my opposition to the measure. Again, I think that what we're currently doing is working, and I think we just need to continue what we're doing. I don't think we need to add any more restrictions to people. I think people have complied for the most part. I think people are obviously getting tired of staying home and staying in quarantine and or isolation or in this lockdown. So I think adding any more restrictive measures to that is also difficult for the psyche of the populace as a whole. It makes people feel even more constricted and more confined than they currently are. And I think people need to know that what we're doing is working. I think they need to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think they need to see a clear direction and a clear plan of where we go next from here, not just let's lock it all down, throw away the key, and then we'll figure it out later. I think now is the time that we need to begin taking a serious look at the numbers of infections, the infection rate, and begin working on plans instead of not how to lock down further, but where's the next step? Where do we get now to where we can begin to open things up again? I think now's the time to begin thinking about how do we
get money to the people's
safely
pockets.
Open things up again. How do we safely restart the economic engine? Because we can't do this forever. We can't stay in this state in perpetuity. It's unsustainable. So I think now is the time to begin looking towards ways that we can continue on this path that we've been taking, while slowly loosening restrictions rather than tightening restrictions in a safe and controlled manner, of course, and with all the experts advising as well. So with that, again, I would just like to say that I will have to vote no on this bill, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. I think what we're currently doing, what the governor has done from the outset in the beginning of this outbreak, has worked and is working. And we should just continue down this path until we can come up with a way to begin to loosen the restrictions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I like you again, Clint.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Muñoz, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't
Barnes?
believe that the legislature has the organic or maybe even the constitutional authority to delegate our powers to create specifically criminal law.
Right on, Louise. I am
This is
surprised.
exactly what we are doing here if we impose criminal penalties on violations of executive orders. This bill will make certain violations of executive orders a misdemeanor offense, which will carry a lifetime criminal record. I think people need to understand that. We don't have a cure for this disease yet. What we do have is prevention, and prevention can be best addressed by getting information out to the public, not by arresting or charging people with crimes.
Right.
We have always valued our freedoms, but until now, many of us have taken a lot of them for granted, unfortunately. Education is a key, which will include the use of emergency broadcast system on radio and on television, more PSAs on social media, SMS text notices. I think the government, the governor and the administration is doing a very good job at getting the word out multiple times daily.
No, they got shut down on WhatsApp.
I support the ability to enforce quarantine
It's
and
not working.
isolation laws, but not in this manner. Since such violations are acts of disobedience, then my remedies should not be civil. It should be civil, not criminal. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I cannot support this bill. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yay.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Munoz.
do.
Senator Castro, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's see, Will.
Madam
Let's see.
Speaker, I too rise in opposition to the bill. It's my position that as a body, we should work not to further expand the divide between the residents and government officials. I mean, the previous speaker mentioned, if you just turn to your email or text messages or conversations at the House, we can see how much frustration there is out there in the community. It's my opinion that there's enough grief and sorrow, you know, with those who are infected and with those who have passed. There's even more anxiety as a result of the road closures, if not just from the crisis itself. I do want to also state publicly and for the record, I respect my colleague, the prime author of the bill and her supporting co-authors for attempting to proffer measures that would strengthen certain ordinances, if you will, that would help to curb our public's behavior. I mean, if the fines were restricted to things in the prior executive orders like the prohibition of price gouging in the executive order 2020-07, I think that's reasonable. If the bill was restricted to imposing these fines to reinforce the executive order on social distancing in 2020-08, that too is reasonable. If this bill was restricted and the fines were restricted to 2020-09 towards even the consumption of alcohol in public spaces, or the requiring the use of masks in certain private establishments or in the conduct of business, to me that's understandable. But Madam Speaker, inclusive in this bill is a provision that's found in the Executive Order 2020-10, which, in a sidebar conversation, you know, covering road closure traffic flow plans, to me it's not specific. I think it's too broad to allow this kind of authority and these extensive fines to be applied almost to the subjective judgment of the enforcing officer. Under what provisions within this road closure traffic flow plan could you cite me for traveling one way or the other? That's my only concern relative to this bill, is that it attempts to provide broad authority to this broad provision within EO 2020-10. For all other provisions that have been carried forward in prior EOs that I mentioned, these are reasonable requests for which a fine may be imposed. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I do want to reiterate, I rise in opposition to this bill. I want to encourage my colleagues to work together to proffer solutions that will lift up our community out of this pandemic and to de-escalate the fear and anxiety. And actually, I want to encourage our governor and publicly thank her as well for all that she's attempting to do to eradicate the virus from this community. I want to encourage her to look towards our municipal leaders, our coaches, our spiritual leaders, and to reach into their circles of influences, because if it's the curbing of human behavior, whether it's by profession or by municipality or by areas of influences, that might be the key. That might be the key. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the privilege to speak on Bill 334. Thank you.
Thank
Go,
you,
Will.
Senator Castro. Senator Kelly Marsh, you're recognized, and then Senator Moylan, I'll recognize you.
Seduce Masi, Madam Speaker. I want to thank those that have reached out to me. I have had those who have discussed with me their concerns and wanting stricter regulations, wanting people to take this more seriously when they felt people weren't, as well as those who have sent messages being worried about the broadness of this bill and increasing the authority of the governor. It does seem that the methods in place are having some effect, that they do seem to be effective. But I do want to emphasize that even the doctors that are saying that they think that they see a change, that they think that they see a flattening of the curve, they cautioned us to not lessen our fight in a lot of ways and lessen our measures. And so I just want to encourage everybody to not let us have our guard down, that we're still in this war. It can come back with a vengeance. But what we do need, as some of the speakers have mentioned, is we need a reanalysis and we need a clear plan. We need a clear understanding of, given our data, we were encouraged to prove the model wrong. And it feels like in many ways we are proving the model wrong, which is to everybody's benefit. But we need a new analysis so that we truly understand where we're at, so that we can have a plan forward. You know, in weighing this out, it's not easy. I want us to make the right step. I don't want us to be the next Italy or New York that didn't put enough measures into place. And this is why we need to hear where we're at with a new analysis, where we need to hear what the plan is going forward. We have not heard anything in quite some time. No updates. I tried reaching out yesterday, but was not getting anybody to return my calls or pick up my calls. And so I didn't get any updated information to inform me. I've heard through a media statement that the administration would still like this to go through, but it needs to be a joint effort. Like, we need to hear where we're at. And there needs to be communication. I've also had discussions with police officers who have stated that they feel that there are other measures that can continue to help carry out what is needed, that can deter or catch the few that are not complying.
Jesse said,
And,
yes, you're right,
and
Clint.
so
Maybe I'll add you back
with
onto my
this,
Facebook after deleting you last week.
it makes it very difficult in some ways to look at a bill like this where, again, we haven't had that updated analysis and we're not being communicated with, we're not being provided information. And I too worry with these violations. The executive orders, there are quite a few of them. Some of them are
Randy says,
small
Brad's comments
issues,
make
some of
this
them are
legislature
larger,
bearable.
and yet there's no guidance in how these would be dealt with, how they would be weighed by the administration. Would everything get a fine? Would everything be up for consideration of a criminal offense, which another speaker had pointed out, which can become a part of a permanent record? So I think there are many needs with where we're at right now, and I just want to register that we need a lot of things. We need that updated analysis. We need that clear plan. We need real communication so that we're all working together and making sure that it's a clear path forward, and it's really what is needed by our community, because I don't think there's a single person here that doesn't want to provide what the community needs and what will safeguard them.
Thank you, Senator Kelly Marsh. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the main motion? Oh, yes. Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do not support this bill, and it's a difficult time right now, and that we are looking at giving additional policies that are going to enforce punishment on people that our community that's in a crisis. And the people are stressed out. And if we're going to say, and if you don't follow this or that, we're going to stress you out more because we can send you to jail if you don't follow the guidelines. There's thousands of people, thousands and thousands that are jobless. And then to feel the effect that if I don't follow the executive order, whichever one it is, that there's a possibility I could go to jail. How does that really help? How does that fight with this COVID virus? I think what we should be looking at as a body is the authority that the governor has now with Chapter 19 of Title 10. It has been mentioned that that bill is a super law, superpowers at the governor's fingertips. She can take property, she can take your mail, she can stop your business from operating. What we should be looking at is checks and balances and ensuring transparency. I'm not sure where this bill would go if it will pass or not, but I can't support something like this. But at the same time, I do see where the social distancing is important, and folks that are just blatant, reckless acts is wrong, and that shouldn't be. They shouldn't do it at all. And if there's going to be some sort of a punishment, make it reasonable, at least reasonable. But jail time is unreasonable to me. Putting that over somebody's head that thought maybe, today I think this is essential what I'm doing. However, there's a new executive order, and now it's no longer essential. I didn't know, right? And then you're threatening me to go to jail. So in that. With that, Madam Speaker, if this bill does move forward, I'd like to make an amendment to the bill, which is already in the clerk's on file there, to strike out on Section C, after $1,000 amount, to strike out or by imprisonment for not to exceed 1 year or both, such fine and imprisonment. I'd like to submit that amendment, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Colleagues, do you have the copy of the Moylan Amendment? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the Moylan Amendment? Senator Pito, you're recognized, and then Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Torisit manggaigi guni paguna ani parata di city hafa mas dinansi parata tauta. Tatungwa na atsotsugui gubernota hafa manisina posak bay tauta. Pes hita ni legislatura gaigi hit gisugundo na ansina tasapoti imaulik na desisyon na gobyerno tasapoti. Co-sponsored jo pa este na bill i 334. Lolo fining litera anything that have to do with taking away my civil rights, my civil liberty is not. It's against my conscience. Pos debili taatan. The previous speaker spoke about sending the bill back to the committee. I, for one, cannot really decide to send it back or to move it forward. What we need to do right now, Madam Speaker, is to act right now. And the only reason why I'm against this bill, because I didn't know that they were gonna impose fine, jail time, and all those things.
Oppose.
And some of the things that is mentioned in this bill takes away our constitutional rights, our civil rights as an individual. Go let's move forward and do with what was initially intended by a governor, like staying home, using the mask, doing the proper hygiene, and things like that. And I have to agree with the other previous speaker that, you know, this bill, if we impose those fines, the roadblock and the restrictions, the curfew that is being imposed, the curfew is not the problem itself, it's the lack of enforcement that we have. Pues Debbie ditaatan estinadio. Let's move it forward. Sa puti gobyerno na fineni na executive order. Stay away order. Use the proper mask. Use proper hygiene. And I know there's 4 of that. But let's move forward with this bill sa tanisisitas ti. And I understand that the government wants to go down on that curve. But when you impose something that is in violation of the civil rights, you know, we need to take that away in our minds. Para ta preso tauta sa pudimano pata kagana po famam boka. Para ta fine un tauta $500, $250 sina ti matsutsuto sa most of them are unemployed right now. Ta necesita mo umatan edusya na restrictasyon siya iban mapega. Sa tisina ang buong tauto na pohano dung da po paseo pat pohano pa park ti edzo. Ang ginguaha tauto gitsalo no mahano guaha rason. Lo janggin baulig na rason bala da taksita. Lo janggin tauta rason na po gagi gyuzong pos debi di masueta do mataugo tati. I recommended in the beginning that whoever is caught violating the order from the governor, that what we need to do is maybe take away the driver's license of that individual. And that's about it. But when they are going to impose arrest and fine, Manilu, Manatungo, Dantoro Samduni Senador, Deputy Taatan sa Mega Tauto, Mega umagang put estina bill. Co-sponsor lo tulay kay nasakusa ni gaigi edzi po fan ma-fine po fan ma-arresta. Ti sino accepta edzo sa megeta tauta. Man tauta sa lapinya sa manay chitso. Pues mala tafatina si mauling na desisyon. Then let's move forward with this bill and let's take away those things that includes the violation of civil rights and things like that, and things that would make people even suffer more. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is Masi.
Thank you, Senator Pito. Is there
Thank
anyone
you,
else
Pito.
that would like to speak on the main motion? Senator Lee,
You're my uncle
you're
again.
recognized.
Dasmalasi, Madam Speaker, and I'd just like to rise in support of the Moylan Amendment and also just note that the author of this bill went through the steps to introduce a substitute version. It creates tiers for a first, second, and third violation. And it's this third violation that we're attempting to amend at this point. So the third violation or third or more shall be
killed the
guilty
bill
of a
already.
misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed $1,000. So this amendment that's before us would remove any jail time, remove any imprisonment not to exceed 1 year, or both, so both the fine and imprisonment. And we did have a bill, Madam Speaker, that was on our agenda earlier in this session that would allow some breathing room, allow a bridge for our people during this very, very difficult and dynamic time. And I think it's really important that we have some consideration and compassion for our people when they're suffering. There was another bill that we considered that would assist them in terms of issues with unemployment. And again, providing them a bridge to be able to get them through the next few weeks and months. And I think penalizing them and throwing them in jail, while I appreciate the 3 steps, I think the jail time is a little harsh. And I know that it was contemplated in the first version of the bill, and we're consistently walking some of these things back. But I do rise in support of this amendment, and I encourage my colleagues to please vote in favor of it. Mrs. Masi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the Moylan amendment? Senator Terlahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the previous speakers on the bill and on this amendment have pointed out some of the issues that we are struggling with here. The bill intends to prosecute by civil penalties or misdemeanor prosecution violations of previous executive orders. However, these executive orders are pretty much, they are varied. They start with what's an essential business, that the government's shut down, that the government has overtime, and to things that affect personal liberties, if you will. But it's just that, yeah, these penalties in this bill would be applied equally to any violation of an executive order. And I feel like that's really where it's very hard to rationalize that the same penalty would be applied to any type of violation of any of the provisions of an executive order. It's not clear to us. I think we're just lacking some information. For example, early on, we were encouraged by the Department of Revenue and Taxation, stating that they were able to enforce many provisions of the executive orders regarding businesses, essential businesses being open, and that they were actively enforcing, shutting down those that were not complying with the order. And I guess that's where we're kind of at we have a gap. I don't think the community has a clear understanding, because I surely don't have a clear understanding as to what the violations that we're trying to go for here. I tried to get some information as to that, but the only response I got was because there's so much traffic, that means that they are violating, the orders. But the orders I think are another source of confusion. The orders, the executive orders, there have been several. And the first one that affected us as individuals, aside from employment, was that there was a prohibition on large gatherings. That was for gatherings over 50 people. And then there was a strongly recommended that mitigation measures are, I'm sorry, it says, in all other instances not captured by this prohibition against the 50 people gathering, that it was strongly recommended that mitigation measures are implemented and enforced, limited to social distancing of at least 6 feet. So in this executive order, it looks like it was a strong recommendation that we maintain 6 feet, that we frequently clean surfaces, posting of signs, and older residents and those with pre-existing medical conditions are encouraged to limit excursions of any type. So at this point, the only real prohibition was against gatherings of 50 people or more. That was on March 16. On March 19, there was a prohibition on all public gatherings or congregations for the purposes of public entertainment, recreation, food and beverage, theater, and it lists certain purposes to include all public venues in which the serving, provision, or consumption of prepared food. So this prohibition was pretty much related to you can't gather at all for these certain purposes, you know, or for food. And then it closed businesses, prohibited on-site operations of any businesses except for those listed in Executive Order 2020-05. Then on March 24, there was an executive order that said extension of prohibition on gatherings and mandatory social isolation. The prohibition on public gatherings or congregations set forth pursuant to item 1 of Executive Order 2020-05 shall be extended through April 13. Well, that prohibition was on the gathering of 50 people or more. So that's all. And then, the prohibition on gathering of 50 people or more, and the encouragement of elderly not going out, and that you keep 6 feet distance from other people. The next executive order on March 28 put in it extended, again, the prohibition on activity in places of business or other public accommodations that I read earlier regarding food or certain types of activity in those public places. And then on April 5th, on April 5th, they extended again the provisions outlined in Executive Order 2020-03, which were those, food and beverage and other types of activity prohibitions in public places.
She's just explaining the orders.
So it says, and then they put in an enforcement provision in that executive order, which said that individuals and businesses who refuse to comply with this order or any of the applicable provisions of executive orders 0-03, 04, 05, 06 shall be subject to fines and or in the care of businesses, in the case of businesses, the termination of business license. Public Health and Department Tax may issue guidance relative to this order. They shall enforce this order and if necessary may do so with the assistance of the Guam Police Department. And we had heard about some of those enforcement measures, and I thought those were successful, Madam Speaker. It's only in this last, and then it was in this, so up to this point, there had only been a prohibition on gatherings of 50 or more, and then a prohibition on gathering in public places for any of those listed activities, food, sports, entertainment, and there was a list. So you couldn't gather for that. And then in this last executive order, there's a road closure traffic plan, and they say this was to ensure that certain designated roadways are reserved for access only by those individuals who are participating in the essential functions and activities authorized in this executive order. And so, I keep trying to get my head around it, and because, most of the common sense arguments that I've received are, if you're in your car, how are you violating the 50 or more gathering order? If you're in your car, how are you violating the executive order against, congregating in public places for entertainment or food or any of those other purposes? You're not. You're just in your car, presumably with, your household members or by yourself. So this executive order was extending it because we were trying to reserve access to certain roadways for only essential personnel. And maybe it's, just a matter of communication, because I can imagine a reason to do that, but we had not known of any reason when this was put into place as to what were we trying to accomplish? What were essential personnel having a problem, getting access on the roads, or having a problem, was there too much traffic for them to get to their work on time? I don't, and I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. It's just very simple questions that make people wonder, what are we trying to do? Is this and that's, I think, where all the speculation comes up of, if we don't know clearly what we're trying to achieve, then they speculate and they guess, and we all become experts in medical. If it's not related to a medical purpose, then I don't know. I've seen everybody become an expert on medical, whether we really are in a crisis anymore or we're not, or whether we've flattened the curve or not. And I agree with all my colleagues who have said that we need to hear from the experts. We need a very, very open and transparent dialogue on that type of thing. And it's even more important if we're trying to curb activity based on a medical reason or a health emergency reason, because those aren't clear. I mean, it's just not clear. And that's one of the reasons why, when these cases get challenged, they're going to ask first thing, have you articulated a compelling reason to do this? Has the state, has the government articulated a compelling reason to do a curfew, especially, right? And what is it that you're trying to protect? And that's what I've been asking for. It's like, if we are still under high risk and our cars pose us a risk, just explain that. We need to articulate it. You need to have somebody, tell us. And I agree that we suffer from a lack of updating from, the doctors who are advising the governor, perhaps. And I would love to hear an update from them, because if things have changed, which everybody's speculating now, whether we should be talking like President Trump about opening up versus, continuing to lock down. I don't agree with that necessarily, Madam Speaker, and I'd rather be cautious than not. And I'm very concerned about ramifications of not following the social, distancing. In California, they call it physical distancing, whatever. But what I think is not consistent is that it's just, I guess, the tie-in. We haven't, the governor has said, when in the press conferences, that we should stay home. And I totally agree. And the doctors say the same thing. They all say stay home. But the mandates aren't very clear that they're mandating us to stay home. They're allowing us to actually go out for all those purposes, and yet now we're not allowed on the road, except for those purposes. So I don't know, maybe it's consistent for some, but I think it allows a gap it's just a communication issue. I just think, these public health statutes, and any enforcement that we're going to try to put in here is to help the governor to move quickly. When we're facing a threat, lock it down as fast as you can, do what you've got to do. We want the people to follow, but they're going to follow if they trust you. And they're going to trust you if you're open in communications with them.
Yes.
And so I just feel like if we were in regular circumstances, we would be asking for more explanation. Just tie it together for us. Why do we need a curfew at night if, going around in the daytime was okay? Why do we need a lockdown of these certain roads versus the other roads versus, I don't know. again, I don't want to impede the governor. I want to give the governor whatever authority she thinks she needs to keep the people safe, to keep us below, to keep us within the capacity of our health professionals to treat us if we are sick. That's what I want, Madam Speaker. So, but I on the amendment, removing the criminal penalties, I guess it only makes sense because we're not tying it to certain provisions of this executive order. Which ones are we going to put criminal penalties on versus the others, Madam Speaker? So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the Moylan Amendment? Senator Torres, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, in listening to the retiring speaker, I heard that there was a recommendation that the removal of a misdemeanor be applicable as well. Is there an intention by the retiring speaker to proffer a further amendment to just take out the whole criminalization of this amendment or this section? Not that I'm directing a question, but I think then what I'd like to say is with regard to this amendment, I think that the proffer of this amendment is on the right track by removing the imprisonment portion of it. But I think that it would be even better if the bill went further and just struck the whole the whole sentence or the whole end of that section, subsection C, where it talks about any person violating a provision of this order in the third or more instance shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be punishable by a fine of $1,000 or imprisonment. I think that whole section is probably where this body is feeling that, the idea that you would criminalize somebody for a violation after 3 strikes is really unreasonable. So I don't know that it is the time now to proffer an amendment to the amendment. Perhaps not. Madam Speaker, if this is a proper time to...
Yes, you may make an amendment to the amendment.
All right, so I would like to proffer an amendment to the amendment, and I don't have it written down, but I think everyone can follow just looking at this JCM amendment to just strike after, essentially it's the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, which begins with any person violating any provision of the executive order. Strike that, and instead, I would just strike that. But what I would do as a conciliatory measure is to insert after the last sentence, the second violation shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed $250, insert, comma, and a $500 fine for every subsequent violation. And I think what that does is it restores the tiered effect of the progressive fines, but it doesn't, it takes away the criminality of it. So if I may, that would be my floor amendment to the amendment. Strike out the lines beginning with any person all the way down and insert a comma after $250 and put and a $500 fine for every subsequent violation.
She didn't say if she's for or against the bill.
And Madam Speaker,
we're just going to go into a quick recess so we can digest your amendment, Senator Torres. And
Digest
we'll put
it,
it up
eat it up.
on the drive.
Chew, make sure you chew.
33.
Number 33. But you know what, to be fair, they haven't had a recess in quite some time.
Oh, do not give them that, Troy. Do not give them that, please. Well, since they're eating this amendment up.
Can we eat our KFC?
Oh, sure.
Oh, I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, I was going to say, since they're eating up this amendment, maybe they won't take a lunch.
They should just throw the whole thing out.
Amen.
And Jim Moylan was right. The Emergency Health Powers Act already gives the governor tremendous, extraordinary power that.
She's already taking stuff from the airport.
Yeah. The constitutionality of the Emergency Health Powers Act itself is in question. And the fact that everyone's letting the governor slide on that, that should be enough for the governor. Come on, how greedy does she have to be for power?
No, Mom, Dispatch says she's greedy.
She's greedy, eh?
There was a video of the Saipan governor. Did you see that?
We played it this morning. It's about the 20,000 test kits.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played it this morning. We're actually giving him props for, first of all, how in the world did you get 20,000 test kits? But secondly, he had a very clear goal. Actually, let's play that video so people can see that. And it's just a minute
maybe
long.
the governor of Guam can watch it too.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. The great people of Commonwealth. It's about close to about 10:30, 11 o'clock. We've been here at the airport waiting for the test kits. We've been working on this test kits for about 3 weeks now, and we have about 20,000 on board. And as you see, it's here on the island. We'll be working on getting these test kits and hopefully start doing some testing in the next couple of days. I want to thank Esther Muña again, our CEO, and the task force, Warren Villagomez, who chairs the task force, Homeland Security, and I also want to thank GAR, Patrick Guerrero, for making this happen. For the great people of the Commonwealth, I want to thank you again for your patience, and we are working extremely hard to get everybody tested. Our goal since day one is to test everybody. It's going to take some time, but we're definitely moving in that direction. Again, our goal is to test everybody 100%, and that is our goal. And again, please stay home and continue social distancing and continue the proper hygiene. So with that, good night, everybody.
Did you notice if the plane said China Air or if like the boxes had Oriental writing on it? No.
I think they blurred that out.
How in the world did he get 20,000 test kits? Well, he is friends with President Trump, so there's that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's also friends with the powerhouses of the Communist Party of China, so there's that as well. I guess the governor of Torres is very resourceful and has friends in high places. But I mean, all jokes aside about it, he has a very clear goal. He wants to test everyone, aggressive testing. That was one of the things that Senator Clint Ridgell was talking about. That, and by the way, did you notice that there's some kind of like love-hate relationship going on between Clint Ridgell and Therese Terlahi? Because when she was just debating, she was clearly talking about Clint Ridgell and her. We are, you know, some of us are acting like medical experts and talking about listening to President Trump, and I disagree with that. And then they had that fight in the last session, the one from Thursday. But she was saying, or Clint Ridgell was saying, that what he sees is that the curve is flattening, but then he recognized also that that might be a result of not enough testing.
Colleagues, we are back from recess. It is in the floor amendments file, and the file name is SB 334-35 COR. If you open it, you'll see Senator Moylan's name on it, and of course the clerks will make the correction to put the slash there with Mary Camacho Torres. Senator Torres, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't necessarily agree that we should have to impose fines at this time when we're all very stressed and disadvantaged. But I think as a policy, though, if we're going to change the law, and I wanted to make sure that whatever amendments are in the proposed drafts, that they're at least at a place where it is most beneficial or less harmful to our community. I think it's important in situations like this to take the criminality out of it. But I also proffered this amendment because I believe fundamentally that in many instances of instituting fines, there is a value to the deterrent in having consequences to certain violations of orders or laws or rules. That's a given in our civilized society, to have consequences for not adhering. I am particularly troubled by the discourse that has occurred here that seems to imply that maybe things are getting better. Perhaps we are accomplishing the goal of flattening the curve. But the very nature of the pandemic is beyond most of our comprehension. How it started, how it spread widely. This morning, I was taken aback by the news of the soldier, a young Navy personnel who died of this disease, a young, very fit person. And it brought to light the fact that we can't take anything for granted. And that where, you know, we are given a lot of encouragement to stay the course, and we're bombarded with daily briefings about how we have to obey. We resent having to obey. We feel that we have liberties that allow us to choose. But I want to also emphasize that the government isn't the people. The government is just the instrument, but it is the people that act. And the government only acts on their behalf, but it really fundamentally comes down to what we decide to do and how lawful we are as a community. I think that if we were to go down the road, and there were originally 6 co-sponsors to this bill, so there were many people here who felt fundamentally that in all situations where there are executive orders or rules or laws, that if you don't follow them, there should be a consequence to that. There's nothing shameful about that at all. What we have to decide, though, is, are we willing to go down that road? And if we are, then what is a reasonable penalty? I think that the penalties that are the tiers now with this amendment make it reasonable, where first infraction up to $100. Maybe the next step would be to further amend my amendment, and rather than they shall be imposed a fine, we can maybe have may instead. That's an option that we can consider, but I'm just in the discourse bringing that up. I think, though, that, you know, the tiering that I propose with this amendment makes it a little more palatable, where it's up to 100, which could be $5 to 100.
Okay, so we'll just go into a quick recess and we'll get it, your amendments.
Oh, it's not oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was.
So we'll send the clerks down to you to assist.
Okay.
Quick recess.
Number 34. 34 or 35? I lost count. 34. Thank you, Sister Ness, for the KFC.
I don't know how she does it. I don't know how this lady thinks of us all
Every
the
day.
time, every day. I am so grateful to have her in our life. I feel like I do not deserve her.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you, Ness.
Thank you, Ness.
So Senator Mary Torres, she didn't continue on with what she said. First fine is $100, second fine up to $250, but she didn't get to the third. I'm guessing. What? How much?
500.
Oh, 500. Okay, so
Yeah.
she's all for taking away the criminal part.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Oh, okay. You know what? I can deal with that. In my opinion.
Yeah, so can I.
But who was the one that said, I think it was Mary Torres saying, like, the people are already in this situation where,
Can't even buy food.
yeah, and they're already confused about everything, all the misinformation. They're already
The people
unsure.
can thank the governor for the confusion, okay?
Yeah.
The governor and her staff, and the lieutenant governor along with that. Everyone keeps leaving him out. Let's put him in there. He's there. He's just quiet. I don't know. I don't.
Can we put back up the welcome to Guam coronavirus free video to remind people?
I'm gonna play it all the way from the beginning.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Here. You missed this.
Oh, I just finished. Thanks for my next round.
Half a day. For the past few weeks, Guam has been engaged in the global struggle against the COVID-19 virus. On my direction, this government took extraordinary steps to keep Guam safe. I know many of you have asked me to ban all flights coming into Guam. I will do anything in my authority to keep our people safe. However, shutting down our airport is not within that authority. Half a day, I'm Governor Lou Leon Guerrero.
And I'm Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio.
We want to personally invite you to visit our beautiful island. Warm weather and warm smiles are waiting for you here.
While there is a global concern for the 2019 novel coronavirus, we want to assure you that we have layers of defense, starting with our airlines and our airport to keep everyone healthy and safe. As of today, we have no confirmed cases of coronavirus on the island.
We are excited for you to explore and experience our island paradise. We look forward to seeing you soon.
That's what she posted in our markets on February 2nd as the coronavirus situation was raging throughout Asia. It's also at a time when she told the New York Times that she fully expected and anticipated that the coronavirus would have an outbreak on Guam.
So not so much a lie.
Well,
because she was inviting them, so she knew what she was doing.
Well, and now she wants the power to tell us what to do, and if we don't follow what she says, we go to jail. How about the governor go to jail for not preventing this virus from coming in? How about the governor go to jail for her reckless decisions that got us into this situation? What about her staff go to jail
Or her
for violating her own
indecisions.
orders?
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So instead of, the governor's no longer a dictator, she is a contradictor.
So Frank Cruz corrects me. It was Clint and Pito that said that people already cannot afford to buy food. Now you want to find them. Jesse says,
I agree.
personally for me, I think the governor wanted Corona here. She knew she could have done more, but she also knew what would follow if it did get here. Money, money, money. Interesting. Jay says, the governor is clucks, though. She contradicts everything she says. Jose Martinez, because you asked about the lieutenant governor, he said, the lieutenant governor played the wallflower role so well. He actually became a wall.
A big wall.
James says, where's Josh? Haven't seen him in weeks. Brad says, definitely not hiding in the closet. Jesse says, Brad Hewitt, it's crazy how the governor, is blatantly conducting all this in the open, the audacity of her and the ignorance she displays. Oh, thanks, Sister Snappity.
I don't think she's ignorant. She thinks we're ignorant.
She talks to us like she's like, remember those school teachers who were actually kind of dumb and didn't have the right answers, and like our parents would correct our homework.
Miss Matafal, 4th grade.
Hey, no. Oh, sorry. It's like the teachers at the private schools that didn't have certification. Like those, when I was going to private school.
Oh, that's correct. They didn't have to have that certification thing. And I remember a couple times my dad was always good at math, and he would correct my math homework, and then I would tell him, that's not what Miss So-and-so said. And he would slap my freaking, honest to God, my dad would slap my face whenever I said that to him. He would ask me if I was stupid in a very mean way. And then after slapping my face, of course he would apologize to me later and tell me, Mommy, I love you so much. But
I didn't mean to slap you, but you're
yeah.
stupid.
Yeah. Son, you have to use common sense.
Common sense. Common sense.
And he would say, are you stupid, son? Do you not see it right here? I'd be like, yes, Dad. And then you go back, and the teacher would give me a bad grade because that's not how you're supposed to come up with the answer. And I would say, but my dad said. And yeah. So Luleongro reminds me of those teachers. I saw Jose Martinez. So I'm loving Jose Martinez's comments on this whole feed. He says, didn't the Gov of CNMI just ask United to cease flights? All Governor Luleongro had to do was ask.
Yep.
But she was more focused on demanding with powers. You're absolutely right, Mr. Martinez. When we saw that letter from United in response to Governor Ralph Torres saying, yeah, Governor, no problem, we'll suspend the flights, we were floored here. We're like, you mean that's all it took? Was a letter from the governor to suspend flights? All our governor was doing was saying, come in, guys. Come in, Corona. You're welcome. Your half a day, Corona.
Come in. Here's my butt. Bend over. I'll bend over. And you can just put it in without taking my pants down.
Randy's laughing about my dad. I stopped you because I love you.
Yeah.
Well, I learned math.
I learned all my cuss words from my dad.
Me too. But I was not allowed to cuss in front of him. And I think I was 10 when I said my first cuss word in front of my dad. And he just gave me a look, but then I think he knew that he couldn't say anything, because he cussed so much in front of me and to me. And my grandma, God bless her soul, she used all the Chamorro cuss words, but it was always against my grandpa, It was like, ah, Agnes, huh? And then my grandma would go and get the machete, and then they'd have, a nice fight. And then they'd sit down together in the living room talking about each other's families.
Oh, this is so taxing. They should be really working on how to get money to the people now. Oh. We just got something from the congressman.
Oh, cool.
Do you want to read it?
Oh, yeah. Is it on?
Yes.
It's on WhatsApp?
Mm-hmm.
Listen up. For those of you who are scared that you might not qualify for the direct federal cash assistance, this is that $1,200 and $500 thing. For immediate release, Congressman moves to protect 2019 filers from GovGuam exclusion and stimulus. In a letter to Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, we'll come back to that.
Colleagues, we are back from recess. Senator Torres, you still have the floor.
So, Madam Chair, the amendment has been uploaded to our file, and so floor amendment file. So the only change here is on subsection C. It reads, if you just follow the tiers, in the first instance, is guilty of a violation punishable by a fine not to exceed $100. A second violation shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed $250, comma, and this is the amendment, and $500 for every subsequent violation. So we've struck in from the original Section C, all the language that has to do with misdemeanors, $1,000 or imprisonment.
Is there anyone that would like to speak on the amendment to the amendment? Senator Torres, you're welcome to close.
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Are there any objections to the amendment to the amendment? No objection, amendment passes. Now to the original amendment as amended. The Moylan amendment as amended. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Senator Moylan, you're welcome to close. Are there any objections to the Moylan amendment as amended? There are no objections. Amendment passes. Senator Kelly Marsh-Teitzno, you are recognized.
Oh, God.
Situus Mahasi, Madam Speaker. I move that we go into recess until 2:30.
2:30 this afternoon. We are in recess.
So breaking news, the legislature has just removed the criminal portion of the Dictator Act. So if this bill passes into law, there will no longer be, you will no longer have to worry about going to jail for violating the governor's orders. Now, the dictator provision still is in the bill, and that's the one that allows these penalties, these fines now, to apply to anything that the governor writes on a piece of paper. So the dictator provisions of the bill are still there, and so we're still going to follow this bill. Maybe the next amendment that will be made will gut that provision. And I think Senator Regine Lee had something close to that.
But so far, the people that are against the entire bill, not the amendment, is, I wrote this down in my notes, opposing the bill in its entirety is Rigel, Munya, Castro, Moylan, and Pito.
As soon as we heard the word,
Antello.
I said, get it.
Antello. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opposing so far.
So far, yeah. So there's still 9 members of the legislature left. We know Tina Barnes is in favor of her own bill.
Yeah.
No one else, except maybe Kelly Tyson, it wasn't too clear, spoke in complete favor of the bill.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Can you read Mike Nicholas's press release so people can know that this is regarding the cash assistance? I want to do the breaking news about the criminal portion being taken out.
Okay. It says, Congressman moves to protect 2019 filers from Gov Guam exclusion in stimulus. In a letter to Treasury Secretary Munchnin, Mnuchin. Oh, sorry. And IRS Commissioner Reddick, Congressman Nicholas expressed concern that the government of Guam was seeking to circumvent federal law. The CARES Act very specifically spells out that 2019 filers shall be included and 2018 filers as well if they didn't file for 2019, opened Congressman Nicholas. Recent announcements from the government of Guam covered by local media have clearly indicated an intention by Rev and Tax to only pay economic impact payments to 2018 tax filers who qualify. Told you guys, the congressman is watching.
And he's right.
The government of Guam's public statements that are only planning to pay economic impact payments to 2018 filers is against federal law, Congressman Nicholas continued. Not only is the local government creating so much confusion, they are repeatedly misinterpreting federal law to the detriment of our people. For what purpose, I cannot understand, Congressman Nicholas concludes.
Right on.
He also sends us the letter that was sent to the Treasury.
Thank you, Congressman Nicholas, for clarifying
This
that.
will be in our Kandit, our www.kanditnews.com
clarifying that for our
Thank you.
misinformed
Uh-huh.
local government that keeps trying to misinform the people of Guam.
I think they just don't know, Troy.
Well, they're getting bad legal advice from a legal counsel that doesn't even have a full license.
So can we
to
just call
practice
him a
law in
person?
Guam.
Because you can't call him a legal counsel if he doesn't have a license.
He's something else, that's for sure. There is also, hold on, sorry, I'm just trying to do this breaking news thing real fast.
Sorry guys, I'm hungry.
There was something else. Sorry, there was some other news and I forgot what it was. Should have written it down.
What? Is it in our chat?
Yes, thank you. We just got. So we did the story yesterday about the government confiscating medical supplies and equipment, PPEs, medicines, test kits at our borders.
You think if I wear this and I go into the thing, they're gonna take it from me?
It's gonna be like a.
They're gonna confiscate this from me?
At gunpoint. So this government is something else. Now, the consequence, here's a real world consequence of that new stupid order by the governor. And this is from Green Energy Solutions, Inc., where they inform their vendors and their customers about a recent incident with the government. It says, Dear Green Energy Solutions, Inc., also known as GESI. Dear GESI friends, family, and customers, I regretfully have to inform you that we are unable to place our order for personal protective gear. The Department of Revenue and Taxation, in conjunction with the Department of Guam Customs and Quarantine, have issued a notice of violation with a cease and desist order to Green Energy Solutions, Inc., stating that our current retail business license is insufficient to sell these products. Unbelievable. I have attached a copy of the new regulation from the Department of Health and Social Services, in which it gives the authority to Guam Customs and Quarantine to seize personal protective equipment being imported into Guam. To those of you who made payment via check, you may pick up your checks at the office, or you may request that we mail you checks back to you. If you wish to have your check mailed, please email me at etc., etc. To those of you who have made payment via credit card, we have not processed any of those payments and we have destroyed all credit card authorization forms. Please verify with your credit card company. I sincerely apologize for any inconvenience we have caused you and your families and employees. Signed, Lynn Scott, Chief Operations Officer, Green Energy Solutions, Inc. So here's a company that wanted to bring in PPEs for its employees, its customers, and its vendors, and to retail those PPEs to whoever, right? And now they're not going to. They have to cancel their order because the government gave an actual notice of violation. So the government is stopping PPEs from coming in. This makes me wonder, why is the government stopping PPEs from coming in?
From from one company?
Exactly.
And not from another.
Exactly. Why is it that only some people are allowed to bring in PPEs, medical supplies, and equipment, and not anyone else? It really makes you wonder what the motivations are behind this order.
Amen. Amen.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So we are going to take a break.
We will forward this to the United States Attorney,
Yes, we
Mr.
will.
Sean Anderson.
Very good, very good. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. We'll be back at 2:30 p.m. Or whenever it is that the Guam legislature is back in session. I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnny Rosario, and that's Eric Rosario.
I do.